button here. Hopefully this all works. We have technical issues. It happens. Okay. Inshallah, we are live here. This is episode 73 of the Team House. I'm Jack Murphy. Over here on the other side of the table, co-host David Park. And live in studio, Elana Duffy, a former counterintelligence agent in the United States Army. You guys also serve as interrogators overseas. We'll get into all of that. But hey, I just want to say, first off, Elana, thank you so much for coming in studio. This is the first time we've had an in-studio guest since Michael Ames, way back when. It seems like forever ago. And that was right when like COVID was really starting to hit.
Yeah, that was before the subway incident.
Oh yeah, it was long before that. Yeah. So, yeah, it feels like it's been forever, and it is just so nice to have somebody in studio. The premise behind the show is that like almost all of the episodes were going to be in studio, and then when COVID happened, all of our guests, like Tracy Walder and Sam Faddis, and they all had to not cancel, but they had to go remote, and we went remote. So it just threw a monkey wrench into everything. So I'm just glad you're here.
We were like 6 feet. We got a little
close. I'm not going to take a tape measure out. And hey, I'm not like. Are you trying to get us fined? Are you going to like dime us out?
Yeah, De Blasio send the popo.
Yeah. Hashtag thanks to Blasio. So, yeah. So, thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Toast.
Yeah.
Gentlemen.
So yeah, it's great to finally have somebody here in studio. And how are you doing?
I am doing just lovely. It's been a weird year.
Yeah.
For it's been a weird couple of years, but in particular a weird year. So yeah.
Weird couple of years. We can't wait to hear about that.
Life is always throwing weird monkey wrenches. Duck, dodge.
Dive.
Dodge. Yeah.
Okay, O'Malley.
Dip. We forgot a dip. So, Elana, one of the things, so Jack and I are huge comic book geeks, as you can probably tell. And every superhero has an origin story. And we would like to hear your origin story. Tell us as much or as little as you want to, sort of about your childhood. When did you start thinking about the military? What led you to it? Were there people in your family that... All of it.
I do have... there is military history in my family, but I am actually the first one to go to a combat zone.
Okay.
My father was, for those who have seen Good Morning Vietnam, he was a stateside version of Adrian Cronauer during Vietnam, during the wartime era. But my grandfathers were both World War II era, but just didn't get sent over. So,
really?
Yeah, I was it. They thought they had lucked out, and then I was like, nah, you know what? I'm bored. I'm going to join the army. Actually, I grew up wanting to be an astronaut, and Space Force wasn't a thing yet. So
you mean the Guardians?
Which the only thing that I can come up with is that it's because of the galaxy, so it's Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's the only reason that I can come up with it. They're calling them the Guardians, but
I think that it's actually Guardians of the Solar System. They don't have their sights set that high.
They're like, can we get to the moon? Not even sure about that yet, but baby steps, guys. Right now they're like Guardians of a place like under a mountain in the Rockies, but so I wanted to be an astronaut. I looked into things like the military academies, then realized that I didn't want to go to boot camp for 4 years. It's smarter to just go for 9 weeks, and pulled all my applications back, went to college to be an engineer, thought I was just going to do the civilian route, and then became an engineer and realized that blueprints are really boring.
Yeah.
And so I walked into my boss's office one day because he had a window and I didn't. And I was like, well, I'm checking to see if it's going to rain and if I need to bring an umbrella to lunch. And P.S., I'm calling a recruiter this afternoon and I'm just going to go join the Army. And he laughed at me and that made me do it because me being bored or being like doubted in any way is a surefire way to get me to do something. So I joined I signed my contract in 2002 and that's 2002 for those who want to make age jokes. You're probably
so this is fresh after 9/11 then.
Yeah. So and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna do active duty and quit my engineering job, went active and decided to not do anything related to engineering.
Did the recruiters try to get you to go that direction, or did they not care because of their quotas?
They just wanted,
you went and enlisted even though you had your degree.
Oh, I had a master's degree in the engineerings. Yeah, my dad was thrilled.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. I believe actually somebody last week was like, what is a nice Jewish girl from New Jersey doing in the Army? And I was like, yeah, I got that a lot. And then I was like, well, I'm not that nice, but so I ended up going counterintelligence because at the time it was first of all you could go straight into CI and then we were more of the ground pounders than at the time it was the 97 Echoes or now 35 mics, Interrogator, human collector, whatever's, but we got cross-trained. So
okay.
So I actually held both MOS, both job descriptions. And
did they send you to language training with that, or was
they actually stopped language training for even the interrogators at the time because we were on such a heavy deployment rotation. I showed up with my unit at Fort Bragistan, and they were like, well, we're leaving in like 2-ish months. So
did you know what counterintelligence was before you went into the recruiter?
I knew what the recruiter told me.
And what did the recruiter tell you?
Wow, it was such a cool job. It's so cool. There was actually one of the recruiters in the recruiting station had been a 97 Bravo. And he was like, oh yeah, like you get to do real cool investigations and stuff. And I was like, but he really didn't talk too much about the job itself. It's more that women couldn't, unless you wanted to do like MP.
Elana, slide like 6 inches this way. There you go.
Thank you for not using left and right because I already had my left and right.
And I'm already fucked up anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah. So women couldn't do anything except like MP or it's kind of it.
Anything
really
tactical, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what you wanted to do, was something tactical.
Yeah. I need something tangible to do. That's why I got bored with engineering. I was sitting there looking at blueprints. I wasn't actually building anything. So so I ended up going in and then deploying 2 months later. And then when we came back, we had like 4 months in between Afghanistan and Iraq, and then heading back out there. And then
what was your counterintelligence training like? Did you enjoy it? Was it challenging?
I thought it was hilarious. But I thought most of the Army was hilarious, much to the dismay of most of my commanders. But I thought it was great. I mean, what they don't tell you is that, I mean, it's like 90% report writing, but the 10% that isn't is a lot of fun and really cool and stuff like that. I mean, we were, especially deployed, we're essentially attached to infantry or whoever's out on the road because we need to get places and we need to talk to people and do things. And I picked up parts of the Arabic language that, I mean, I can tell you exactly what, 3 men, red Toyota, average height, all with AKs and ski masks. So I can tell you, I would probably be able to still understand that in Arabic at this point because it's always the same. And I decided that if I ever found who in Baghdad was selling ski masks, I was going to break this whole thing wide open. We were going to just decimate the entire insurgency.
You could just stake out the ski mask store.
Yeah.
Let's take a hot second here just to unpack for the squares out there who don't know. What is counterintelligence?
Counterintelligence is supposed to be we are really one of the Blue Falcon MOSs, but we're looking for the high crimes. So espionage, sedition, subversion. We do a lot of the investigate your own kind of like CID or in the Air Force, like some of the OSI folks do it. NCIS for
Navy.
Yeah, Navy, Marines, whatever. But we also do all other forms of human intelligence collection. So anything that involves talking to a human, turning them into a source or some sort of informant, and figuring out how to get them to trust you enough. It's the same concept of interrogation. Yelling at somebody never works. You have to get them to trust you. So it's a lot of motivation, examining someone's motivation, figuring out what makes them tick, and then how to work that to your advantage. So it's a lot of fun. It's a very difficult job to do well, and some of the people who do well at it, you don't necessarily want to be friends with for too long because
they're good at it.
Yeah.
What were some of the things, we've had people from the intelligence community in here before, and they've sort of told us about their training at the farm or whatever. Like, what was some of the training that you went through? Were there any particular moments during your training that you just thought this was really cool, or also really lame?
We definitely caused a lot of. I mean, because I went through in early to mid 2003, the system hadn't completely caught up yet to where we were. So we were still doing a lot of it's like they would take like a Cold War scenario and then just kind of drop it into, but this is actually happening in the desert. And you're like, and meanwhile we're like, I mean, you're in Arizona, you're in southern Arizona, but like you're still kind of in the mountains, like it's like kind of high desert. So it's not quite the same.
Right.
But actually the class after this, and when you do have, it might not have been his class, but there was a class right after us who actually were wandering around with like dummy weapons on their little patrol because we do have a field exercise, and it's a major drug trafficking route that cuts right past the base up to Tucson, and they actually caught some drug runners with their little like dummy rifles. Some privates were just out there doing their fake patrol, and
awesome.
and came across some like drug runners who like
they probably thought they were part of the scenario until they found like the bales of meth.
Right. Oh, shit. Right. They're all like cosplaying, right? Hey, put it up. And the drug runners don't know they're not real weapons. And,
they like chuck their like pistol. They chuck like a handgun at, and we're like, oh, and they were like, oh, I guess one of us should go get a drill sergeant, like somebody who actually knows what to do at
we
this
probably
point.
need to go with this.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So, that was, but most of the time, I mean, it's a lot of like schoolhouse learning. There's, when I went back for some of the more advanced, there's a debriefing course, a joint debriefing course. There, I went back for a joint like interrogation certification course and some of the other advanced training. Some of that is really cool. You end up getting advanced driver's training and surveillance training and all of this other stuff. Because I ended up going into one of our elite units later on that you have to assess into, and they get to go to all the fun schools.
Yeah.
But tragically, when I volunteered to deploy, that's when they were like, "Wait, what are you still doing in the Army? You're supposed to be." And I was like, "I don't know. Nobody told me to go home." Because I actually was hit by an IED in Iraq and ended up getting brain surgery 2 years later when they figured it out. It was. My Army career was a mess of fun and excitement,
Sounds
and
like
joy, and
Hell yeah, the adventure never ends.
That's
oh
right.
yeah, it's not just a job; it's an adventure.
Right. We do more
it was in the
before
commercial.
6 a.m. than most people do all day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we can quote commercials all day long.
Yeah.
All day. I was definitely being more than I could be. Which is, I think when I went in, it was still the tail end. When I actually was getting ready to sign my paperwork, it was still the end of kind of the be all you can be.
Before rolling to Army of One. It's horrible.
Oh, see, that's really nice. My friend Caleb used to say about me, who was on this show also a few episodes back. He said, the harder the Army squeeze their fist on you, the easier it is for you to slip between the cracks in their fingers. I was like, that's right, Caleb.
That is some E4 Mafia.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as the E4 Mafia. It doesn't exist.
Can't smoke me. I'm already smoked.
The E4 Mafia is a myth. Don't believe J. Edgar Hoover and his boys.
So, speaking of which, because you had a master's, did you go in as an E4?
I did.
Ooh.
I was E4 Mafia for they were like, you know what, you haven't been a private, would you like to be one, because you're on the way. It turns out that some of my commanders didn't necessarily appreciate when I would be like, why are we doing, I have a degree in logic engineering, and I am in the most illogical place known to man, because you're asking me to cut a lawn with scissors on a Friday because the sergeant major's unhappy. This is not smart. So I would say things like, why are we doing it this way? And inevitably, whoever had made that decision was standing right behind me. And all of my little Blue Falcon buddies would be staring at me, being like, we're behind you, just real far behind you, and very much anonymously.
Yeah. If you don't step forward, we'll step back.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of meerkats, when one of them's getting eaten by the alligator, all the others are there watching.
Yeah.
Now
That's MI right there.
Yeah. Now CI though, are you badged? Are you credentialed?
I actually have my retired B's and C's sitting framed up on my wall and
because you're an actual agent, right?
Yeah.
So you have a badge and a gun. And
yeah, we actually have to flash the badge and stuff like that. We actually I was just talking to a buddy of mine who I went to AIT to advanced training with, but he said that they're actually going back now and they are making all the CI folks into 1811 series, which is like the police series. Yeah, so that they'll actually be able to carry a gun and like have arrest authority. Because if we needed to make an arrest, we actually have to go with CID or something like that.
You do
we have
not
a badge.
have arrest authority.
Yeah, we have a badge, and we can ask anybody anything. Like, you are still compelled to answer our questions, but you, if you tell us something, we can get real mad.
We'll write you a stern letter.
Yeah. I'm going to put that in your file.
So if for the people who did internal investigations, sort of like the, not really internal affairs because it's more about intelligence, but for the people who did the internal like Army investigations, did they also need an NP with them if they were going to arrest somebody who was in the Army?
I think they're investigators. I think their investigators come from like CID, okay. So I think that they do have arrest authority.
Interesting.
But I'm not positive, and I think some of them are civilians. So, yeah. But and that's actually what is different in the Army from both Air Force and Navy is because NCIS and OSI, there we go, are both, they both are dual, they're 1811 series also, so they do have that arrest authority. They're investigating agents for all kinds of crimes. We are only for these specific crimes of espionage and so forth.
So does that, as far as you know, do they have to go through the full MP course then? If they have to learn all the...
They're going to have to.
And
they're going to all have to go back to... Yeah, they're going to have to go... all the existing ones, I think, are going to end up having to go back and to either Quantico or somewhere and get credentialed, or to, God help them, Fort Leonard Wood and
So then what is the difference, if there is any, of this job field between what you guys do stateside and when you get deployed?
So it depends on it really depends on the unit, but so stateside in a tactical unit. So when I was at Fort Bragg, it's a tactical unit. We have no investigative authority. You can't do anything on U.S. soil. We are only there to essentially train to deploy. And so we are on heavy rotation. That's why I was actually deployed more, for more time when I was stationed at Fort Bragg than I was actually in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which worked to my advantage because, Vietnam is not a lovely place. I was like, I think I'm safer in Afghanistan. So it was, so we actually don't have, we have no authority there, but if we are stationed in Korea or Germany, chances are you are assigned to a unit that does have investigative authority. So like in Germany, I would mostly work with the Polizei and the Bundespolizei, the state police and so forth, to look into counterterrorism or look into, and also because you have NATO requirements that, the Russians are just going to drop by because they have authority under whatever statute to come and inspect our hangars with 24 hours notice. And so we had to go and make sure that, the Apache systems that were secured were conveniently up in the air for basically the entire period.
Wow.
So, And and then when we are deployed, we are just essentially ground pounders. We are wandering around looking for bad guys with the bombs, theoretically before the bombs go off, and basically just and there are different assignments overseas too. But
So are you the primary human collectors then?
yeah, so we are back then they were still called Tactical Human Intelligence Teams, or THTs, for the Army, and then the Marines started calling them HETs, Human Exploitation Teams,
Yeah.
which doesn't sound good. And then
Oh yeah, and then the FETs.
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
No, I'm not making that.
Yeah, no, that's real. And so most of the time, like I would go out with the infantry all the time, and so therefore I am the only person who can talk to any of the women or any of the children. So
Right.
about half of my time they were like, oh, we also have to run a checkpoint today, so can you do that for 6 hours with us too?
It's you're an attachment, so yeah, you're getting drug around on everything.
But what they loved is that because I was going with them, I could put into to just, be like, oh, do we have to swing by Baker Village because there's that guy who sells the good kebab sandwiches there, so then I would be like, fine, I will find something to do, and we will change the mission plan, swing over there. So like one of the guys, because I was with Samoans mostly, and they would come back with like whole chickens, like roast chickens, and I was like, I don't even know where you found those, and he was like, this is the best day of my life.
So you would basically generate intelligence requirements so that
so that he could come back with chickens.
Hey,
you know what?
Do what you got to do to survive over there, man.
yeah, you got to pass the time somehow, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
So when you graduated from Huachuca from the CI course, what was the first unit you were assigned to, and did you know anything about it? Were you excited about it? Did you not care?
I originally actually got orders to go straight to Germany, which would have changed everything. But instead, I went to good old Fort Bragg because my now ex-husband, at the time my boyfriend, wrote me a letter from his. He was at one station unit training for the infantry, and on orders to he had airborne and Bragg in his contract. So he said, oh, my drill sergeant said if we don't get married, then I'll never see you again. And I was like, is that a proposal? And you know what? The romance just never ended.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it started for all the right reasons.
It's great. Whatever, man. The BAH was fine. He ended up coming out to Arizona after airborne school, and in between airborne school and reporting to Fort Bragg, and we got married, and so my orders got changed to Fort Bragg, at which point we really never saw each other anyway because we were on opposite deployments. But because I got to Fort Bragg in like December, and we were gone in February to Afghanistan. Did 6 months in Afghanistan. Came back, and our in brief was don't unpack because the brigade's leaving for Iraq in like 3 months, and you guys are going too. So what was it like going to Afghanistan? And like when you first got there, was it? It was actually like we landed. We were one of the few like daytime landings, and I remember the tail of the. It was a C-17 comes down. And that was the only time in my entire military career where it was like, oh, this is like a movie.
Right.
Because like, it's like the Hindu Kush is over
Out
there.
of the back ramp.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, this is exactly what I expected. And then everything else went to shit. But that like.
Well, if it was a daytime landing, they probably went in pretty hot, didn't they? Because they had to spiral down into the pole. Did you land in Kabul or in Bagram?
We landed in Bagram. I don't remember it being that awful.
Okay.
But I mean, I was actually one of the few people, one of the few legs, one of the few non-airborne, because there wasn't enough time for me to go to airborne school in between. So, which turned out to be the theme of my career. But we came in, they dropped us off, they shot our pallets out the back with all of our gear, and then they got out of there because the Air Force wanted kind of nothing to do with Afghanistan proper. They were going to head back to Uzbekistan where it was nice.
Right.
Turns out it was also like depleted uranium, but whatever. But it was nicer. Like they had air conditioned tents and stuff.
Right.
But
and beer.
Yeah.
They
had a lot. It was actually pretty nice up there.
Yeah.
So it was like you're walking and you walk down and like, you know, you got two files coming down the sides of the ramp and just staring out at essentially just dust, tarmac, and then the mountains. And you're like, okay, no, this is like what I signed up for. This is like the poster.
Yeah.
And then they started doing things like yelling at you to get your bags, and like chaos ensues.
It started arming out.
Yeah, it just started making an army thing out of it.
Now, were you primarily based in Bagram, or did you?
We were on teams. So half of our company ran the main interrogation facility, which in 2004 was really there was like nothing in the country really. Like, you know, you'll hear all about how somebody today told me that there by the time that he had gotten there was a Cinnabon in friggin' Bagram. I was like, yeah, when we left, they were pulling in like a Burger King trailer and there was like a line
right
down, and that was the day we left. So none of us got any of that, but thank you.
What time frame were you in Afghanistan?
January, February of 2004. I think it was February of 2004 to like July.
Yeah, that makes sense. But when I got there, the Cinnabon was there, the green bean was there, the Burger King.
There was a green beans. That was the only thing.
There's always a green bean.
There's always a green bean. They move that in.
Green bean, whoever it is, they had I don't know if they still do.
They got the contract.
They had the contract. And it was a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And so Green Bean was the coffee shop that you would find in all the PX or all the
bases,
the bases.
Yeah. And we'd sit here and get all nostalgic. Remember the Green Bean and salsa?
And it was not very good.
Yeah. No, not it. Really,
it was not. But it was all we had.
No, in Afghanistan, you always tried to get down to Kandahar so that you could go to the Tim Hortons that the Canadians brought in. That was the deal.
I heard about that. I went to Kandahar for like 2 hours once. And we were like, you guys have like boardwalks. You have stuff.
It's a nice boardwalk all built up. With all the different,
people are like, I was in Kandahar. And I was like, no, I have been there. You had it so nice.
Yeah. So where did you get shipped off to from Bagram?
So we ended up out in Herat, all the way out west, and lovely city. What was left of it was a lovely city, and and by what was left, I don't mean that we did anything. I mean that has been in disrepair, like the Russians and so forth had all sacked it. But it's like the gateway to the Silk Road, and it's got this lovely history. I learned to drive a manual shift on an old Russian minefield that had not been fully demined, but nothing will make you actually like get that car moving up a hill from a dead stop with the knowledge, like, if I roll too far back, I'm gonna roll into the actual minefield. And at that point, I mean, this is before there was a FOB at an operating base at Shindand. It was before there was an operating base at Farah. So we were responsible for 4 provinces, and we were a team of 4 people. We had a special forces team with us. A civil affairs team was out there because they had to be at the provincial reconstruction teams, the PRTs. And like half, it was like maybe a couple platoons, I think, of field artillery were there to just provide base FOB security. I remember because the Army has to do Army things, and at some point my team leader was like, the company commander wants us to do a PT test here, and it took some ridiculous number of laps around this tiny little, like, we had to do like little figure eights,
14 laps around.
Yeah, and to do like the 2-mile run, and you're running like these little tiny like tight figure eights to try and get the spacing in. And then we would just go on convoys for like 3 days because it took hours and hours to get up to any other town, because it was just, the ring road wasn't finished. I don't even know if it ever really, I mean, is it ever really done when they keep blowing it up? But there was nothing, it was just dirt roads all the way through these canyons, all the way up to, Bad Geese province, and periodically Dostum, a warlord who ran the Mazar-e Sharif area, the Mez, and actually the British were the main people in charge of the Mez of Mazar-e Sharif at the time, and our local warlord Ismail Khan was him and Dostum never really got along, so periodically, like, we would just get a call on the radio from the Brits being like, Dostum's massing his guys on the border with your provinces again, so I assume Khan's gonna move his own army up there, because they all had their own little armies.
Yeah.
And so we would be like, fine, we'll talk him down this time, but like next time it's your turn. But because, they all, at that point, it's still the factions still vying for all of the power. And the poor guys in civil affairs were like, we're really just here to dig wells. So, or not even dig the wells, but give these guys the money to theoretically dig a well. So everything kind of just fell on us and on sometimes on the special forces team. But
how long did it take you to learn? Because I mean, like in America, we don't have any concept at all of tribalism and tribal politics. And
oh yeah,
well, yeah.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Ready for Civil War II? Here we go. Here we go, boys.
I'll be playing D&D or something. But the idea.
I'm still waiting on my my calendar invite for that, by the way.
For Civil War II.
If nobody puts it on my calendar, it is not happening.
Right. They need to send. Yeah. They need to send out the Gmail invites.
Yeah, like you need to put it on my Google Calendar.
So I fit it in.
Tell me, are we doing shirts versus skins? I don't even know.
So how long did it take you to like to kind of grasp the politics, the family politics, the tribal politics, the how it all ran out there.
Well, luckily for me, my teammates, actually, I think of my teammates, no one had gone on, because we had actually been on such heavy rotations that some of the people in my company had already been through a rotation in Afghanistan. So we got the down and dirty, and we were, because we had actually set it up that our company would replace the other human intelligence company from Bragg, and so we were on this little rotation setup, and so we had gotten kind of the back brief. And I mean, I am a nerd. If the engineering degree, wanting to be an astronaut, the fact that right now I'm wearing Star Trek socks,
you heard it here first.
yeah, I am. They also say, trek yourself before you wreck yourself, and has Spock throwing Vulcan gang signs. But
you're here for these details, folks.
That's what's happening right now. So I had I had read up on it. If anybody is really likes the older history of that area, the book The Great Game by Peter Hopkirk is phenomenal, and it's written really well. It's narrative style. But so I knew that there was a lot of tribal issues, and a lot of that comes into play because it is, no kidding, all the time. That guy's grandfather stole my grandfather's goat, and we have had a blood feud for years. And so I will tell you anything you want to hear about that family.
Right.
And sometimes, I mean, you quickly learn how to use that to your advantage, but you have to just take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
So
it gets hard because all the intelligence is sort of tarnished or corrupted by these grudges.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Who shot at the helicopter last night? Oh, it was them on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that when you go and hit a house somewhere, and the guy, same story every time. I'm not a bad guy, but I know
where that guy is. Yeah. Yeah,
this guy down the street, I'll take you right there right now.
Yeah.
See, one of the advantages to being a woman is you could talk to the wives. Mm-hmm. And by wives, I mean of the same guy.
Right. Because
wife number one and wife number two, my husband, who you seem to be after, oh no, he is fine. He is wonderful. He is lovely. Oh, he happens to be in Baghdad right now. He's always in Baghdad. It's really weird. But let me tell you about her cousin. I will tell you where he lives, all the bombs he's making, where he's making them. They will tell you everything about the other wives' families.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people here in the States, civilians, don't realize how important it was to have female intelligence collectors out with med caps, medical, what is cap for? Whatever it is. But med caps with the different PRTs, with things like that, because when you roll into a village, the guys, they all have their story locked down. And no American man can speak to an Afghani woman.
Right.
But the women, a lot of them are waiting for a chance to.
Yeah, I definitely like to hear some of those experiences you had, because I mean, this is not even, the Army is obviously jive to this, but my perception of it going in was women don't have any power in the society at all. What do they fucking know? Why would you even talk to them?
Yeah.
What was
They
it like?
watch everything.
They hear everything because the men don't even like consider them. So they don't speak openly.
Yeah. And so, and one thing that you just learn is, even if you're after her husband, even if if her husband could have been, Bin Laden, and I would have been like, oh no, I'm sure it's all just a bad rap.
Right.
I'm sure. So why don't you tell me who he comes and talks to? And she's like, oh, well, let me tell you. Because they just want someone to talk to. It's like going down the street to if you've, I love doing this too, is because I guess I kind of fell naturally into this job of saying, oh, well, going into the store and talking to the clerks or the people that nobody ever wants to talk to.
Yeah.
Because they just sit there and they hear everything and they know everything. Those houses, they're made of mud and hope. Nothing is stopping the sound.
Right.
So, and there's not a lot of hope holding that together at this point either.
And I mean, it's a small village. Everybody is related somehow, and everybody knows everybody's business.
Yeah.
Now, did you have a female interpreter or a male interpreter?
I had a male interpreter, and in Iraq in particular, my interpreter was he was hilarious. He had grown up, he was an Assyrian Iraqi, and the Assyrians suffered quite a bit under Saddam as well as, kind of everybody. And so he had no love, but he had been born in Baghdad, and raised his early childhood in Baghdad, and then his family moved to the U.S., and he had grown up in Chicago, owned a liquor store on the north side of Chicago for a long time. The war breaks out, he shutters his liquor store and becomes an interpreter because he's like, I can help both of my countries. And so he was hilarious because he hates everyone. And I was like, oh, me and you are going to get along just great. And so he would sit there and he would always do things he would always position himself between me and the sheikh of a village, because he's like, no, I don't trust him. You can't sit next to him because I don't trust. And I was like, I'm supposed to sit next to him. And he was like, no, he probably has ringworm. And I was like, all right, okay. He was like, you see him scratching his face? He probably has ringworm.
Iraq is a little more egalitarian and sectarian.
Mm-hmm.
How was it working with a male interpreter in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, it was very, very, because we didn't even, it's so segregated in Afghanistan, and it's so, especially out west and in the smaller towns and the smaller villages. Herat was fine. Mm-hmm. Herat was because Herat is the second largest city next to Kabul. Mm-hmm. And so it was just they kind of adapted, they ebb and flow, but once you left the city limits, I would sit there and I'd be like, where are the women? And even the children, once they were above about age 7, the girls were
sequestered.
Yeah, just home. So we would have to go and seek them out to just check in, and we would, working with the civil affairs guys, which some civil affairs don't really like working with CI because they don't want it to seem like a quid pro quo type of situation. But we would kind of help them out, especially if they hadn't sent women with them. Either I or actually my team leader was also a woman, and so we would have to kind of go in, because we couldn't go into the girls' schools without a woman. We couldn't go to talk to any of the, and these are the schools that are being targeted, but the women teachers really couldn't talk to another woman. But the interpreter that we had there, he was very, he knew it. He had been there for a minute. He knew what he was getting into. And he would always kind of stand behind, he would do, he was the only interpreter who ever did what they taught you in the schoolhouse, which was that the interpreter should be standing kind of behind you so that you're talking to the person and they're really talking to you, and just kind of this voice is repeating what you're saying. I didn't pick up, it was mostly Farsi, Dari, which is the dialect, but like a Persian Farsi out west. And so he knew that, and he also knew Pashtun, but because of all of the different dialects, I didn't pick that up nearly as quickly as I started picking up Arabic. But these women, they were just relieved to have a female face.
Right.
Yeah. And because we were there and we were directing the conversation, it was okay to have him in the room.
So he was basically kind of transparent. They didn't even really consider him as
they were
being there.
Yeah.
There's a good interpreter if they're able to do that.
Yeah.
We really lucked out. I know that some of the teams had really struggled with that, because the interpreter would either get too close or
try to
do
take
something.
control of the interview.
Yeah.
Now, were you guys working with Indigenous interpreters, or did you have like Cat 1, Cat 2s from the U.S.?
We had U.S. interpreters because we needed to have them to have clearance. So we either work with a Cat 2 or a Cat 3. Cat 2s can hold a secret clearance, and Cat 3s can hold a top secret clearance. Right. So we worked almost exclusively with them. It was mostly the Cat 1s, the not cleared or locals were mostly with MPs and with the other patrols that would go out. So we would only use them like when the bomb hit like our convoy and like everybody needs something at once, I'll grab whoever speaks Arabic.
Right.
But or so I'm told, because I have no memory.
How different was the job in Afghanistan to what you learned in the school? Was it like, did anything that you learned in the school apply, since they had really kind of taken these Cold War scenarios? Did you have to learn on the go?
Oh man, I'm starting to recall our FTX scenario and how amazing it was. AO Red, because they come up with the best names, the most creative names. It was, the reports are about the same. That's about it. Really from the schoolhouse and then getting dropped into Afghanistan like 2 months later. But I don't think that there was much that anyone could have done to really set that up or prepare that. I'm sure it's way better now because people are teaching the courses who have actually been there.
Right.
But, the scenario immaterial, humans are humans, but being able to start factoring in things like, they're allowed to have up to 3 wives, and all of these little cultural things that if you know them, you can actually use them to your advantage. We really didn't get any of that in the schoolhouse. And then that's just stuff that you either have to pick up on the fly, pick up from somebody else, or if you have a good Cat 2 or Cat 3 interpreter, they can be like, oh, I should tell you before we go in here, like during the Russian war, like this happened, and that's why these guys don't get along, and so but there was it would have been helpful.
Yeah.
Like the little CIA books that they give you, the little CIA fact book, really, it
didn't cover it.
Didn't even really get the weather right. Like, I mean, yeah.
Let's then segue into Iraq. And what was that how was that different as an operational environment from what you had just been in Afghanistan?
Well, Afghanistan especially, like, I mean, it was, where we were was the Wild West. I mean, it was, there was like, it was fewer than 100 Americans for within a day's flight of like anything. We couldn't drive to the closest bases. So we were out there. I mean, it took us, at one point there was like a 2-month lag for us to like get mail or get like a food drop off or anything, because thanks Air Force, there was weather in the mountains.
Right.
Yeah, it's sunny. I know the game is on, but could you do me a favor? Because we're hungry. But the, and Iraq, I mean, it's more educated in, well, I mean, Afghanistan, when we were in Herat at that point, the little fob, our little like 18 lap or whatever fob was right in the middle of the city. At one point, there was actually a fighting broke out between some of the factions within the city, and they were shooting over our compound. I was like, it's not that big. You can just go around. But we were like, they were shooting around like all us and like all these NATO compounds. And so we get a call from like the Germans, and they were like, it's coming through the plaster. Like the AK rounds are coming through the plaster on the walls. Could you come get us? And we were like, yeah, we don't have any armored vehicles, but like, sure, we'll just come and pick you up in these Toyota Hiluxes. But in Iraq, like everything, like the bases are built up because they're old. I mean, I spent my first 3 months doing election details, and then because this is early 2005 now, so it's elections, the first Iraqi election, and then hostage rescue, and that's where all my stories about the SEALs and some of our 18 series come in from.
Not only throwing shades on naval infantry,
Desire to know more intensified.
but on the green French hat guys too.
The berets. God, what a dumb idea that was to adopt from everybody. It doesn't even keep the sun out of your eyes.
But it looks smart.
Does it though?
I don't know. A properly molded beret.
Properly molded beret.
It's part of our unique and colorful history and high esprit de corps.
Thank you for that, Blue Book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, and then you have the people who don't bother to shave it down first, and so
Right.
it ends up looking like a poofy chef's
That's
hat.
why you don't give it to everybody.
Yeah. General Shinseki.
Shinseki made everybody elite.
Yeah. Everybody gets a black one. I don't know.
So now you're in Iraq.
Yeah.
With all of these supposedly high-speed dudes. What was that all like?
Fascinating.
Yeah?
Now, were you part of the same unit still?
I was part of the same unit from Fort Bragg. At this point, in Baghdad, we were like we were like attached to an attachment to an attachment. Like that was straight up Army madness. But and I don't even remember how I got myself into enough trouble to get myself moved. But I'm sure it'll come to me.
How is the marriage going at this point? I think that everybody wants to know.
Oh, yeah. Well, bless his heart. He is doing very well for himself, I'm sure, by now. I don't know. I still talk to his brothers. I don't really talk to him anymore. But that's because he married someone 13 years his junior who doesn't want him talking to his ex ever again. I understand he has a little bit of an affair problem. Something. I don't know. I was like, he was in the 82nd. Like, they have a reputation. He just already had it by the time we got there. He just fit right in.
These unfounded accusations about the airborne infantry. I can't believe this, Dave.
So weird. I have seen so many of them.
Allegedly.
I have seen so many of them naked in my bathtub, in the middle of my hallway, like just his friends would just, and I was like, seriously, like put pants on before you pass out. Like I don't know what to do with this. You go clean this up.
Well,
I think
you keep permanent marker Sharpies around your house, and you draw dicks on their forehead.
Usually I was late to PT, so I would just kick them. But,
I think what she's trying to say is that true love is blind.
Yeah. I'd be like, what is Jeff doing on the floor again? You guys have to be at PT before I do. Because 15 minutes early to the 15 minutes early to the 15 minutes early, you guys have another 15 minutes. So, yeah. And I outrank all of you. So.
Oh, so you were not E4 at this point in time?
I was still an E4.
Okay.
He just wasn't.
Okay.
He wasn't a Cornell grad. Because that's how I chose to waste my college education.
Did the Army at least pay for that?
Some.
Okay.
They pay back, I did loan repayment, but they only pay back federal loans. They don't pay back any private loans, and so they paid back. So I had gone on a scholarship, and then a partial, like a half tuition scholarship, and then the Army paid back maybe like another half of the loans. So I mean,
Cornell only $100,000 a year was
ish.
what you were left with. Yeah.
Ish.
Nice.
Ish. It's paid now because I'm 40. You know. So, yeah, bless his heart. I don't remember where he was at this point. He might have been in Afghanistan.
Were you guys still together at that point, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when I say together, I mean
married.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were married. There used to be a topless bar that I'm pretty sure was off limits within walking distance to the place where we lived, the firehouse. Anybody who had ever been to the firehouse.
The firehouse? At Vietnam?
In Vietnam.
Oh, there's a firehouse at Columbus, Georgia.
Well, I'm sure there was.
And that was on the off-limits list, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was at Bragg, too. They like to keep that pretty well structured.
I was going to say, just from what I've heard from friends, I feel like I would know the name of these gentlemen clubs around North Carolina.
Well, this is not to be mistaken for Secrets or any of the other places.
Sharkies.
Yeah, Sharkies.
Yeah, Sharkies.
Sharkies was across from Secrets, and I think that the strippers would do battle. I'm not positive.
Pure titanium down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What was the one, though, that had the 99 hot girls and one ugly one?
Oh, I don't know.
They were everywhere too. That was their motto. But here's the thing: if you're gonna open a strip club, then open a chain of them and open them in army towns because that's what army towns are: strip clubs, pawn shops, used car dealerships.
Yeah.
sew shops.
And paid it. Oh,
sew shops are great.
Sew shops are kind of new, though.
You can just throw a patrol cap up into the air in one of those military towns, and like a Korean woman snatches it up out of the air, sews it up for you.
Let me tell you, there was a guy right on my corner. He would start. This is back when we had like the BDUs, so he would starch them, shine your boots, $10, and you go pick it up. That's and amazing. It's like I can see myself in my boots.
Yeah.
Like I like make sounds when I walk, like I'm wearing corduroys, but no, that's just all the starch.
It's interesting because Tim Ferriss is known as the sort of the guru of life hacks, but Army Joes were life hacking shit way before Tim Ferriss ever did. Yeah. Like
I didn't even know what a life hack was, and I was just like, no, the dude on the corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Drop it off on my way.
We just called it skating.
Yeah.
Getting over.
We called it the sham shield. Yeah. The specialist sham shield.
Before we got onto the gentlemen's clubs in Fayetteville that we all know and love. I
got stories about secrets.
Iraq.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get sucked up into working with...
I thought we weren't talking about the... Never mind.
With all these bros... And you assured us you have stories about these operations.
Yeah. So how did you get there? You got to Iraq.
So we got to Iraq, and in actually for my second deployment in a row, they were like, "Oh, we want to send you to place X, but we might send you to place Y. So why don't you just sit tight and we'll figure it out." Because that's kind of, I think, how the Army actually makes decisions.
Yeah.
Not to give away trade secrets, but...
there's a magic coin they flip. Yeah. But they have to flip it 100 times, so you wait.
Yeah. We show up, and they were like, oh, they need I don't even remember where I was supposed to go at the time. I think I was supposed to go to Mosul I have no idea. I don't remember now. Needless to say, I never got there. No, it must have been Mosul because I ended up going up north for like a week, and then they were like, oh no, we're actually going to send you to Baghdad because they need a female on the team down in the green zone. Yes, green zone, best assignment.
Yeah.
Civilian clothes assignment. It was friggin' great, except that when I had been at AIT at Fort Huachuca, the Army decided to reshoot their 97 Bravo Join Counterintelligence commercial while we were on our field exercise. So they were like interviewing some people, like, what's it like to be a 97 Bravo? And I was like, I don't know. Why don't you ask someone who is one? Because we're in our training exercise. But, and I am in that commercial, apparently. I've actually never seen it. So if somebody can find it somewhere, and it's not on the YouTubes.
It's not on the YouTubes.
It's not on the YouTubes. I have looked. This commercial started airing like January of 2005 when we showed up I'm showing up to this plainclothes assignment at the embassy, at the stand-up U.S. embassy in Baghdad, and I have to meet with like generals and all of these people, and all of a sudden the ambassador is passing me in the hallway of the embassy and was like, I just saw you on the AFN commercial. And I was like, well, glad to see that's airing finally. Good to see you too, sir. Thanks.
So for those of you who don't know, AFN is the Armed Forces Network, and it is what is piped into military bases everywhere overseas.
It's like being in some Orwellian science fiction film that everywhere you go and you hear the voice of your leader. In 2009 it was Obama, back then it was Bush, and like everywhere you go you just hear their voice.
Yeah. It was just terrible commercials of and everything is
don't kill yourself.
Yeah.
Please don't kill yourself.
Everything is third-rate acting. just these amazingly bad interviews. Like, it's,
I'm sure your commercial was great, though.
I can't imagine it was, but
I hope you have an IMDb page for it.
we will definitely set that
So
up.
they shoot you down to Baghdad, and because they needed
They needed a lady face on the teams down there, and I don't know, maybe I wasn't supposed to be there at all. I was superfluous, whatever. They were like, you're going there. So I end up on this team that is doing strategic embassy relations and liaison work, and then like also what's going on in the green zone, who's plotting things against the green zone, and the green zone being the huge international area where the different embassies were, and it was supposed to be this secured area that and so we were there for the first elections, and I mean, everybody's pretty much just on patrols, and we're sitting there telling all of our sources, like, don't line up by, this entrance, because, like, there's definitely going to be snipers, and, like, so it was, but what I ended up doing, because I talk to everyone like I'm supposed to, is I started falling in with like the hostage working groups that were down there, and primarily the one at the embassy that was this liaison point for all of, in early 2005 especially, there were a lot of kidnappings, a lot of, Sergeant Keith Malpin had already been missing at that point for quite a while. So we were still looking to recover his remains. We were like, so it was anything that was all related to hostages, and they did not have a dedicated intelligence asset. So having found this out, I was like, well, what am I doing after like 7:00 in the evening when like the gates close and like nobody can get in or out of the green zone or whatever, and the FBI has closed their bar for unknown reasons, because God knows they're probably still drinking anyway.
Right.
But because, fun fact, they built their own bar at the back of their compound. And they would get their liquor from an Assyrian who had opened a liquor store brilliantly inside the green zone limits.
God bless the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, he was so smart. He made a killing off of like all the civilians.
Yeah.
And so
All the officers.
yeah. So we end up, so I ended up basically moonlighting with the hostage working group, and that's how I started falling into all of the Squirrely Forces folks that were floating around. Actually, one of the SEAL commanders was super nice guy. There's like one or two that are great people. They didn't write a book. But wait, what?
No, you're good.
Yeah, no, it's
come up before.
It may not be all of them, but it's enough of them that it's a real thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we, and then one of the best experiences was the night that one of my sources called and said, "Oh, I happen at this point." So it's still early 2005, and one of my sources calls. My interpreter would take control of the cell phone at night because I'm not great at Arabic yet, and calls and says, I know where AMZ is at Zarqawi, who at the time was number 3, I think, on the high value target list, something like that. He was up there. He's definitely top 5. And so he was like, I know where he is. I know he's going to be there for at least an hour, probably 2. He's at a funeral. And it was 10 or 11 at night. My interpreter comes banging on my little trailer door and was like, I don't know what to do with this. And I was like, okay, let's go find somebody who can actually respond to this, because me and you were not super useful right now. So went and I actually found that particular I went into the one of the embassy areas, and the SEAL commander happened to be working late, and told him, and he was like, okay, my guys are gone, so we'll bring you over to the old 18 series compound. So he calls them, tells them that we are coming. We go over there, and we roll in. I get it, it's late. Put your pants on. Like, I don't need to see you in your silkies and your giant beards. Put a shirt on.
And they're tidy whities and showing up at the gate.
Seriously, like I get, like, you love your Ranger panties. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Like,
Ranger panties are amazing.
they are, and they're super comfortable. No problem. I have some too. You knew we were coming. Put a shirt on. I don't need to see that,
To
boys.
see if they knew you were coming.
That's probably why they did it. They probably changed into it.
They probably did. They're probably in like their onesies. You know,
They're cozy, they're snuggies.
Yeah, all tucked in for their night.
Yeah, they're their snuggies. They were like, "Ooh, we're not on a mission tonight.
Yeah.
We're gonna get all snuggly." So we show up, and shirtless bro 1, because God knows I never knew their names, sits down at the head of their little conference room table and was like, I hear ya. You know where he's at? And I was like, he's at a funeral for one of his buddies. Yes, my source is reliable. Do you want to check? Well, we're not going to move until we have some SIGINT on this. And I was like, hold on. Let me make him make a phone call. What do you want from me? He's 20 minutes away. Do you want to take a ride? They had me drag my source out to, like, into the green zone, onto their compound, so that they could talk to him, at which point he was like, I will never talk to you guys again. And then they still were like, no, humans too unreliable. And I was like, you're just comfy. And I got one of them lady faces, and you don't like lady faces because you don't trust us. And that was pretty apparent. It was very much a, hey, little lady, I hear ya. The next day, turns out the funeral had been a real thing. Everyone who was anyone who had been there.
Wow.
And the 2 people apologized to me directly, and that was the SEAL who had brought me there in the first place. He was like, sorry about that. Actually, probably, though.
My bad, bro.
Yeah, my bad. And he was like, in all honesty, you probably would have gotten the same treatment from my guys. And actually, their commander was like, turns out that funeral was a real thing. And I was like, yeah, I know. Oh, well. Y'all could have gotten a good bag there.
And how long was this before we ultimately smoked him up?
Well, this was 05. It was a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? I just want to go back to this idea that
He was still teaching General McChrystal all of his life lessons, I guess, at that stage of history.
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Thanks, man.
they had a hostage working group for how long before you got there?
Maybe a year. I don't even think a year.
And they had no intelligence assets. What did they do? They just sat around and watched Real Housewives on AFN? Or?
Yeah, I mean, isn't hostage rescue supposed to be like JSOC's like whole purpose for existence originally?
Well, it wasn't JSOC though.
It was like this weird like secret room on the 4th floor type of thing.
Yeah, it couldn't have been JSOC.
Well,
though,
if it was like a hostage working group, it was probably State Department, right?
It was.
Yeah, it couldn't have been. It wasn't JSOC though, because they would have taken you to one of the tier 1 units, not to an SF team.
Yeah. And I mean,
so
like,
they didn't they didn't like, he didn't even put out the word. Like, nobody else knew about this. He like kept it in house and tried to farm it out to...
I mean, it was lucky that I had even run into him, because like everybody had pretty much like knocked off for the night. It's 05. Like, I don't know who's working at the embassy.
Right.
But because at that point, everything happens in like this one like area of the embassy where like all the different special forces type elements all have their own little area and office. And I mean, like, I had knocked on like all of the offices down the row until I got to the office where this, and he was like the SEAL guy. He was like a comms officer or something. I actually don't know how they do their little designations. Me neither. I'm sure they're adorable. But I mean, because SEALs are so cute. They do their claps and they balance the ball and nice. But like everybody had pretty much like knocked off for the night or something, and he said his team had been out somewhere else or they were otherwise occupied. And that's why he had brought me over to the Delta guys, and they were just like, meh, I don't know.
The Delta guys or the SF guys?
They were Delta. They were on their squirrely own little compound.
Okay,
the Delta guys. The unit.
You have to look over your shoulder. And
so it must have been JSOC. Okay.
The unit. Well,
because I was going to say, like, SF is supposedly a human-based organization. So them saying, like, oh, we're waiting on SIGINT would be kind of surprising. But for JSOC, I'm not as surprised.
Yeah. No, they were like, no, unless we have SIGINT. And I was like, fine.
But and probably also some of it probably was that they didn't trust you, that you would just walk through the door and like, why?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Yeah. And also, I mean, I am... at this point, 24, and like I've like a little baby face, and I was like, "No, guys, you don't understand.
I know where Zarqawi is.
You don't understand. I know where Zarqawi is." Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, well, at least I put pants on." And the source that I had, like, he was very reliable, and he did come in, and we did get him into their compound, and then he was like, I don't like bearded men yelling at me, like, this reminds me, because he had been held prisoner by Saddam, like, in like, a couple years prior, and he was like, you know what this reminds me of? Because they were... regime. Yeah, he was like, I don't like strange bearded men shouting at me, shouting questions at me. And he was like, this makes me really, like, I'm having fun. And I was like, I understand. Hey, guys, could you tone it down a little bit?
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about, girl.
You're at a 10? Well, let's take it to a 5.
Yeah.
10? 5. Yeah.
And they were like, 11.
Yeah, right.
Well, the recce guys would probably, or their human guys would be able to handle that, but all the like operators, they're
Yeah. Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
the best dude to handle that kind of
if
thing.
if you're gonna call yourself an operator, you better act like one. So,
I speak 556.
oh god.
So,
Yeah, well, I'm having flashbacks.
aside from that whole incident, I mean, there any other interesting operations during
there were
that time frame?
So many. There's so many. I mean, like and I loved working with I mean, that whole time in Baghdad was actually pretty great. I mean, we I did have a similar incident with actually being able to know where Maupin's body was, but I couldn't get corroborating evidence. But turned out the body was buried there. Either way.
So tell us a little bit about that. You got information and you tried to pass it on and they wouldn't accept it because it was single source?
So what's super fun about HUMINT is that it is notoriously unreliable, especially in an area with a lot of tribal issues or sectarian issues or anything like that. So whenever, and especially after Abu Ghraib, nobody really wanted to, as for a year or two after, people were still kind of stepping themselves back from a lot of HUMINT. And because they were like, well, we can't hold anybody for too late, or we can't do anything. Actually, we had been, when we were in Afghanistan is when Abu Ghraib broke. The story broke. And when we had landed in the winter, because Abu Ghraib broke in like April-ish. So in the winter, you went into the detention facility and it was quiet and everybody was on their own individual little mats. They had these large cages set up, but like they all had sleeping mats. They all like had their prayer mats. They all had their own individual stuff, but the detainees weren't allowed to talk to each other. They weren't allowed to do all these things. And the interrogators, which had kind of like a catwalk up above it, on this kind of 2-level warehouse type of facility, could do things like they could play off of each other. They could say like, hey, do you have like this person, so that they could try to throw like, oh, maybe I have corroborating evidence or something like that.
Right.
And so after when we were getting ready to leave and I went into the facility after, this is now summer, and so a couple months later, they had changed all of the rules that, like if the detainees asked for it, they could get it. If they were they were still like, sitting on their mats, but they're like sitting there playing cards, they're shouting at each other, they're yelling through the gates there. And if the interrogators were told for a while they couldn't even look over into like down into the cells, because they were told, oh, that's invading the privacy of the detainees. And I was like, they're
in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just blew people up.
Right.
Can we can we all acknowledge this? So it was such a crazy and different world, and that ultimately leads to, the escape from Bagram prison, but that was not under our watch, at least. By the time we get to Iraq, they've changed all of the rules of even when you're allowed to detain somebody. We needed 3 independent pieces of corroborating evidence to be able to hold somebody longer than 24 hours. You could bring them in, but you couldn't hold them longer than even a couple of hours unless you had multiple pieces of corroborating evidence, and you had like all of these different things. These different pieces had to line up before you could even hold them to transfer them to a main facility.
Right.
And it makes sense because, again, your grandfather stole my grandfather's goat, so I'm going to get you arrested. We were able to filter out a lot of those by not being able to get corroborating evidence unless we talk to like your brother, and that doesn't count. But when you have things like Zarqawi's at a funeral, or like, you know, a body is located here and it's somewhere that we haven't checked.
Right.
Would it kill anybody to really send a team out there to go look?
And you know, and those rules, I mean, it's one thing when you get a walk-in or you encounter somebody who wants to report on something. It's something completely different, though, when you have a trusted asset, somebody who has reported accurately in the past, telling you this. I mean, we fell into this hole both in Iraq and Afghanistan, where we were no longer fighting a war. We were conducting like a police action with evidentiary standards and chain of custody stuff, and all this stuff, which soldiers often can't do. And you know, they talk about human not being reliable. But SIGINT often wasn't reliable either. They would do these phone chains and these link charts and go, okay, this phone is connected to this guy who's connected to this guy, so we should hit this phone.
It was like 50% accurate at best.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, at best.
Yeah.
You know, but then you get in and there are 9 guys in there and they all throw their phones the first thing, so you don't know whose phone belongs to whom. And it's like, well, we don't know who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
All we're going off is, you know, a phone number, a SIM card, whatever.
Yeah. Or you raid a place at 2 a.m. Nobody's got their phone on them.
Right.
So who is the bad guy?
Right.
Well, I guess we're going to play that game.
And I can assure you that any unit that you talk to that turned down the Zarqawi, information based on, it's only single source, had done hundreds of raids on single source information.
Yeah.
It's just somehow we fell into this trap where SIGINT was so much more, and SIGINT, for those of you who don't know, is signals intelligence, is generally based off, technology, phones, radios, but generally
cell phone interceptions.
Generally cell phone,
for the most part.
Cell phone stuff. And human intelligence, when somebody actually tells you something, and we kind of did the same thing that Carter did, right, with the NSA, like, this is the future.
Yeah.
And he gutted the CIA and built up the NSA, and all of a sudden we were behind the world in intelligence operations because our CIA was nothing at that point. And we fell into the same sort of trap in Iraq and Afghanistan where we placed all our faith in technology and none in the human resources, the human assets.
Yeah. It was and what's interesting is I can actually go into a bit more. I think most of the trials are done at this point, but the Giuliana Sagrina kidnapping, when the Italian reporter had been kidnapped, and we didn't necessarily know where she was, but then the Italians were so intent on getting her back that they were willing to talk to anybody. They were willing to move on single source, and they were willing to do anything.
It was the same when they were trying to get him out of ISIS land in Syria.
Yeah. But they they definitely paid a ransom when they got Sagrina back, and then but they didn't. They were so it ended up burning everybody because they didn't want to tell the Americans that they had moved on single source and paid a ransom, and so then they tried to blow an American checkpoint, and that's how they got their vehicle shot up and killed one of her bodyguards, and she got shot in the arm. She recovered, but And there was this whole huge trial, and they were like, "Oh, we told you," and I was like, "I was there. You definitely did. You could have called, even like as you were picking her
On the
up.
way back.
Yeah, like, hey, we're coming. Tell the checkpoint. Don't don't shoot the first vehicle. You can go after anybody behind us."
The way the Italian intelligence functions, from what I understand in these situations, is they start off, they have nothing, right? They know nobody. So they go to the guy who sells kebabs on the streets. And they say, "Who do you know?" And they'll give him $500 or whatever, take you to the next level up. They give that guy $500, and then it escalates. And then if they hit a dead end, well, then it's backtrack, start at the beginning, start handing out bribes, up, and try to make that connection to eventually paying that bribe to secure the release of their hostage.
Yeah.
Obviously, a small country like Italy, they do have a counterterrorism unit. Obviously, they don't have all the assets that JSOC has, that they can't bring all of that to bear. But that's clearly a case of, poor coordinations. It was avoidable. Yeah.
And the thing is, though, years into this, a lot of the bad guys had become savvy. Whether it was like a guy on a motorcycle who would turn his phone off, have his phone off, turn it on in front of a target house, the house he wanted hit, make his calls, turn it back off, go. And then, after watching this pattern over and over and over, you go, okay, he's in that house.
Yeah.
Right? Or I remember in Afghanistan, they had these charms on their phones
that change color,
that would flash. They would flash. They were like, LED charms or light charms or whatever, that would flash whenever their phone was being pinged.
There were stickers too.
So they would know that their phone was compromised. And so after a while, the signals intelligence just became every bit, if not sometimes more, unreliable.
It's very similar to if you guys have ever seen the TV show The Wire.
Yes.
Where it's like the gangsters realize their comms are compromised, so they start taking all these countermeasures, and then we try to counteract that.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah, it's actually like I was telling somebody the best spy series to watch is either The Wire or The Americans.
Oh, I thought for sure you were going to tell me that like you were basically Denzel in Training Day.
Oh yeah, well, obviously, but obviously,
making your sword stick a hit of meth and then pulling a revolver on in the car. You were doing stuff like that every day, right? That's what it's like. Cruising around the green zone.
Yeah.
So you fell into this working group. You fell into this working group in Baghdad, but what was your day-to-day job?
So, well, my day-to-day job in the green zone, especially, was we would take some walk-ins. Actually, that's there was one of the major kidnapping rings that was operating mostly out of Sadr City got reported to me just from a walk-in, and she just and it was a woman, and so they were like, "Oh, this is why we got one of them ladies down here." So get carted on in, and she just dumped this whole thing. It was the 1920 Revolutionary Brigade, and then they had been operating mostly out of Sadr City at the time, and they had been kidnapping internationals, they had been kidnapping locals, they'd been doing anything they could, and she just dumped like a ton of, like, she had written like a dissertation about like who knows who and how they're linked and where they're kept and all their safety, and I was like,
the crown
like,
jewels.
Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
And she was like the smartest person. And she was just like, I know you can't necessarily verify most of this stuff. Let me tell you, like, this is where I got all the information from. And she had wanted, I think, her, like, someone she knew had been detained, and she was like, I just want like a visit or something. And I was like, what do you need? Because if any of this pans out, like, you're my hero. So And so a lot of my day was basically like running down
she was
stuff
legit?
like that. She was 1,000%. We broke up
Really?
the entire operation
That's
off of her
hardcore.
information.
And was she like a lover scorned, or like what was the backstory on that?
Yeah. A one scorned.
Yeah, she was like, basically like my bitch ass husband, and
Ain't paying the bills. Yeah.
yeah, and like I think it was like her brother had, like her husband had like gotten her brother incarcerated, and for the stuff that he had been doing, and she was like,
Ready to drop dime.
she was like, oh, hell no, you aren't going to do that in my town. And she's like, let me go tell some people some stuff. Yeah.
How did the whole, because in the green zone, and the green zone is this sequestered zone, basically, how did a walk-in happen? And, you know, there was you, there was the DIA, there was other, you know, there were all these intelligence organizations. How did they determine which person got which walk-in?
Sort of luck of the draw, but also at the time, bless their hearts, like the agency, the CIA was on lockdown, because I think they had gotten shot up in the circle outside of outside of Solder City one too many times. And I was like, well, maybe if you didn't have a $300,000 up armored,
Escalade.
like, yeah, like,
Well, no, they were like G500s or whatever,
Yeah,
the Mercedes.
Oh,
Yeah.
the up armored Benz.
yes,
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like, oh, this is our discreet
Low
vehicle.
visibility vehicles.
Yeah, we're being super discreet. No, honey,
Where I
no.
guess the DIA was going out in unarmored, like
Yeah.
totally indige.
Yeah. So a lot of the DIA, DH folks, they were kind of rolling their own game, but they weren't taking any walk-ins, because they were running their own operations.
Okay.
The agency is not used to taking walk-ins, and so it's kind of beneath them. So they didn't really want to, so they
Right.
really wouldn't. So they were just sitting on their thumbs the entire time, because they weren't allowed to go out because they kept getting shot up every time they did. And so really a lot of and nobody really knows what the Bureau was doing there in the first place.
Right.
Just unloaded on this brigade. And actually, because I had been working with the hostage working group, somebody was like, she says she knows something about like some hostages, so could you go and talk to her? And so that's how I ended up going to speak to her. And because again, like nobody had bothered to give them a dedicated intel app. That's actually what got me kicked out of Baghdad, is petitioning to get them a dedicated set.
Well, here's a story.
That's what it was.
Hold on a second, guys. It's our stupid internet, and it's totally our fault.
Oh, bless the internet.
Yeah.
Technology saves it.
I'm still streaming.
It's going okay.
I think it's just you.
No, it's a buffering issue. It's our internet.
Buffering.
So anyway, continue. So here's this story about you getting booted out of Baghdad.
Before we start this,
Stream, unfortunately.
we need to get Teddy Tech in here.
That's Spectrum. There's nothing I can do about that really, except try to upgrade.
No, I think a tech can come in and figure out what's going on. Because sometimes when there's a lot of, I think.
Okay, so I think we should be back, and I apologize, guys, that the internet is going in and out. So
Yeah.
you want to get to some questions,
let's-
Dave?
It shows me that we're lagging again. Okay, so thank you, Gordon. Gordon says the Australian Army Intel had to serve in another corps first. Do you think it would have been beneficial serving in another big Army capacity prior to going to CI?
Now they actually do. But you can't go in as CI. So, and part of that reason is for that experience and for kind of that maturity. And wow, yeah, no, I know some people who definitely should not have gone directly into CI. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Theory.
I think we're still...
It's, Dave, when the video completes, people will be able to watch it in full, even if it's buffering as it's live streaming.
Oh,
so
okay,
let's
good.
just go through the questions.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
In which case I will make myself another drink.
Hammer Nails, thank you very much for the donation. Gordon, again. Nolan's question, did you work with any Brit units? And if you did, what did you think of them?
I, first of all, love working with the Brits, and even just having worked peripherally with them while they were up in Mazar-e Sharif and we were in Herat, and we had to Afghan election security operations, and these guys, because when you work for the UN, they were retired, and so they were civilians. They were not allowed to carry weapons because they're UN. And one of them had been senior enlisted with the British Special Forces. And I was like, so how's that working for you? Having to go to, like Farah. They were very sympathetic also to the plight of the Americans that we weren't allowed to drink,
I was
even
going to
off duty.
say,
And
they
so
weren't under
forth.
General Order Number 1, so I'm sure that they were an asset.
They were lovely to work with. Yeah. Cheers to all of them.
And then, again, thank you, Gordon. Fun question. Smoke any sheesh and best Bragg Boulevard stories.
We'll get to Bragg Boulevard. It's better than the Merc, though. Murchison is most of the strip was off limits, but that's the facing south. That was the east, on the east side of Bragg. Most of it was off limits. Bragg Boulevard kind of came right down the center. Other than that, no, I didn't smoke the sheesh. I do have a hookah that has never been used because I wanted to be an astronaut growing up. I am one of the very few people who honestly could answer all of my polygraphs with no, I have. Parts of the 82nd was doing along Bragg Boulevard, as in prostituting themselves.
Oh, you're talking about the gay porn ring?
Yeah. Well, no. So before the gay porn ring, same guy, not same guys, but same regiment. What are they?
Division.
No,
Or
because
they're
it's
brigades.
division. Yeah. At that point, they were still brigades, because then they switched into some sort of weird form, because it was the 50, 504, 505, and then it was the 325 or
Something
3
like
something.
that.
Yeah. And those guys, and then they're paying 24% APR to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get that terrible car deal. No, also I would, because I lived off post because I was married, and most of my friends lived in the barracks, I would frequently get called to come and pick them up at the strip club if I hadn't gone with them, because the I mean, the humor was early 2000s. Like, all my seats were still upholstered, so it's like this felt material that's never coming out. You could vacuum. I'd be still finding it now if I still had that car. God. Moving along.
So wait, if you could still find it now, that means that there was glitter in your car at one point in time. Right?
I will neither confirm nor deny
The body glitter.
the body glitter that ended up in my car, because I believe that particular person, who I'm pretty sure was making his way through every stripper secrets, he knew all of them. Probably biblically.
By the real name.
Yeah. Maybe not their last name,
right,
but probably their real name. He is now, I happily married with children. I may have been invited to his wedding, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to say nothing.
It's a story as old as time.
but his wife from Secrets?
No. Surprisingly not.
Sharkies.
No, he PCS'd.
Okay.
So probably a strip club somewhere else.
One of the commenters says we call them essential workers now.
Yes.
That is true. They have not shut down the strip clubs in many places.
It's one of those. It's like
if they're still wearing a mask.
Yeah. It's like liquor. It's one of those businesses that will do well no matter what the economy is like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, thank you, Gordon. So you got to play Smack a Rodent with Iranians in 2 countries?
Yes, actually, I've seen Iran from both sides, both borders. Actually, yeah.
God damn! If Cheney had his way, you would have gotten to see it a third way.
Yeah, God, so close.
I know.
Actually,
you feel cheated, right?
I think I have I definitely have a photo of the mined DMZ between Afghanistan and Iran, that we definitely, but don't try to prove it, wandered into enough that the sat phone would say that you are now in Iran. And then my team sergeant may or may not have taken a dump on Iranian soil.
Yeah.
So
that's always the hallmark of a soldier, is that walking across the border and
leaving something behind.
Leaving something behind in a country that we're...
All right, let's get
more than
these
footprints.
Questions here, because we got some other important stuff we need.
We have some very important stuff.
And
Jerry, thank you very much. Did you ever interact with ISI while in Afghanistan?
I don't think so. Not much. Not in 04.
Yeah, I don't know that ISI really ran open. I mean, obviously they were in Afghanistan, but I don't know if they ever ran openly. Thank you, Joey. Joey wants to know, was Elana ISA?
Secret squirrel.
I was in I was in an off-books unit, but they are it's there's several
black helicopters. What are we talking about here?
Lizard people,
whatever conspiracy
you want, chemtrails.
Did you have your own ski mask distributor?
You know what? Tragically, because of that, because of that pesky med board, I never got to the ski mask level. But no, we did run clandestine operations. So.
Thank you, Adam. Adam just said, rock on. We love you guys. We love you too, Adam. And DJ, thank you very much. Favorite course besides CSAC and Sierra Vista?
What in the sorry V would you not love?
Do you want to tell us about CSAC and Sierra Vista?
Sierra Vista is like Fayetteville which is, so for people who have not had the pleasure of being to Vietnam, it is it's north of the South Carolina border by, I believe, from the south of the border signs that run all the way down Route 95, all the way through from Virginia, all the way to South Carolina. It's about 60 miles north of South Carolina, but it's also still about an hour south of Raleigh. There's nothing around Fayetteville. Sierra Vista is that times like a million, because there is just nothing.
And Sierra Vista is where Huachuca is, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
It is essentially
Sierra Vista, Arizona.
Yeah, Sierra Vista, Arizona is the town that happened to pop up because there's a military base there. And it's the two closest towns are Bisbee, which is weirdly like a very artsy hippie town. It's lovely. I actually did get married there.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I did not get divorced there. That happened in Jersey. And Tombstone, Arizona, which is exactly like the movie, except they paved the streets. And I love Tombstone, and we spent nearly every week while we were at the AIT course at our advanced training. Nearly every weekend, once we hit phase, which is every so often you would be able to phase, so you would be able to you can get a day pass to go out into town, or you can get a day pass for X number of miles.
You get more privileges, basically.
Yeah. And then you could get, once you got overnight privileges, so that you didn't have to get inspected to make sure that you're in your room by 10 or 11 or whatever it was at night. We would overnight in Tombstone about once a week, and we became regulars at the Crystal Palace Saloon in Tombstone, where I learned to dance the Arizona one-step with a guy dressed in full Barney Fife outfit. Every week, without fail, he was dressed like Barney Fife. And I was like, Barney Fife was definitely not in Tombstone. Didn't matter to this guy. But all the reenactors would come out after hours, still in costume, and hang out and dance, because Crystal Palace would always have live bands, and hilarious place to hang out. Anyway, aside from all of that, that is also where I definitely did a boot and rally off of terrible bottom shelf whiskey, which is one of the reasons why I drink rum now. It was like turpentine. Old Crow bourbon whiskey. You can't even really find it anywhere. It's so bad.
Well, next time you come in, we will have some. We'll see if we can get another boot and rally live on.
That was. Oh man.
I don't have a puke bucket.
There is a photo of me because I was convinced that my friend, who I am still I was actually just texting with her the other day, would come back for me, because we took a giant group photo because it was our last weekend. And when we had walked into the Crystal Palace, by that point we were such regulars. The bartender knew our drinks. By the time we got up to the bar, he would have a shot of Old Crow, and for me it was a rum and coke, waiting for us at the bar. And we were like, we're going to do a shot every hour on the hour. But I thought we had gotten there on the hour. My friend thought that we had gotten there on the half hour. And so he would walk over with another drink about every another shot about every half an hour. And meanwhile, I'm also drinking rum. And we also decided that we were going to do a shot with people because people were coming in from our class in groups. And it did not take very long for us to plow through a bottle or two of, he didn't even, it wasn't bottom shelf. It was like he had to
right,
it
was like cellar. It was the cellar.
Take through.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta lift up the panels of the floorboards.
What do you have under your well?
Yeah.
That's what we want.
And so we take this group photo, and I turned to my friend Vanessa, and I was like, I'm going to go throw up now. And she was like, would you like me to come and hold your hair back? And I was like, please, would you come along? This is actually how we still talk. She's a New York City local as well. And she came in, she was like, you good now? And I was like, I think so. And she was like, okay. And she left. And I thought she was coming back. Apparently, I was sitting on the floor waiting for her for about half an hour. No idea. Passage of time, gone. And then one of the reclass, he was actually an infantry. He was he was one of the group guys. He was he was fifth group at the time. He was reclassing into our job. He was reclassifying because he had gotten injured, and so he was reclassifying. And and we weren't supposed to be hanging out in the first place, but he comes knocking. Like all of a sudden, you just hear like this tiny little tap on the ladies' room door, and he's like, "Hey, Bluffy, you in here?" Because it was a mix of my maiden name and my married name. And he was like, you in here? He was so scared to knock on the door, bless him. And I pull open the stall door, and I'm just like sitting there like on the floor like, hey! And 4 people come around with cameras, take photos. So there was definitely a photo of me sitting next to the toilet on the floor of the Crystal Palace Saloon.
Memories.
Bathroom.
I'm so glad that the girls have these quintessential Army stories as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And he was like, oh, okay, you're alive. And I was like, yes, Vanessa coming. He was like, no, she's been out here for like half an hour. And I was like, well, I thought she was coming back. Come on, let me get you a drink.
She's been Arizona one-stepping.
Yeah, she's been dancing with Barney.
Yeah.
Like what?
So, John Dorsch says, upgrade your internet. Okay, I will, John. I will. I'll show you. Pam, thank you so much. Ian, I'm falling behind because of the buffering, guys, so I'll ask early. What does Elana feel that a giraffe would sell for on the black market?
It's a standard question.
All the guests get this one.
On the black market, you're going to get a markup. So, I mean, I'd say at least 3 camels and a herd of sheep.
In like a barter economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
what about straight cash?
I'm just saying because that's where my brain goes to because that's what I got traded for on multiple occasions. Yeah, I've been traded for several camels, which is actually quite nice because camels are very expensive.
Yeah.
Herds of sheep, herds of goats, 3 Iraqi wives. He offered all 3 of his wives if he could take me home instead.
Offered them to whom? Like who
to
my
to like my partner. So he essentially figured that he was authorized to trade me.
Right. And was your partner ever tempted by these?
He was
lucrative
actually.
offers?
He was definitely, and he was like, 3, really?
Can I get 3.5?
He was like all 3. He was like all 3 for this one, and I was like, I want to see how this plays out. You go ahead. You bring 3 women home with you. Go ahead, bud. Yeah. He didn't think it all the way through.
No. It seemed it was one of those ideas, like so many in the military, that seemed really good.
Yeah,
from the outset.
He was like one for the kitchen, one for the kitchen, one for and then one for the bedroom, and I was like, mm-hmm. And what are you gonna do when they all get together and they're not in their assigned places,
right? And in the U.S., he doesn't, that's 3 alimonies, which will break a man.
No, I got some stories.
He was only an E5.
About the multiple wives in West Africa. I'll have to save that for another time. Brandon asked, "What advice would you give to someone looking to go into counterintelligence and counterterrorism field? Love the show. Hope you guys get better internet soon." Me too.
Aww.
Thank you, Brandon.
Aww.
That was sweet.
He doesn't know that the building's condemned, right? Sorry, before we went out to the building...
What would you recommend to somebody going into counterintelligence or counterterrorism? Like, would you recommend the military? Would you recommend a civilian route, college?
I would recommend first of all, I would recommend getting out of your bubble before you go into it. So whether that means like going to college and getting the best interrogators and the best CI and the best CT people that I know did something for a minute, even a brief minute like I did before going into the field, because you have to get out of that bubble. You have to to know that there's other people out there, there's other situations out there, there's other stuff. Because it just makes you more willing to you have to be able to put yourself completely into somebody else's shoes. I've sat across the interrogation table from someone who the day before had tried to kill me. I've sat across the table from someone who 2 days before had killed one of my friends. And you just have to understand and not just fake, but be able to actually understand there's a reason that you did what you did. Mm-hmm. You didn't just wake up one morning and were like, I'm going to put a bomb in the ground. I'm going to just go do that. There was a whole thing that led up to it that made sense to you.
Right.
Why? And that's what's so actually fascinating to me about it. And because they could justify murder,
sure,
and killing somebody because of and it's not all love of religion. It's I've met people who are they offered me $10 to dig a hole and drop something in it.
That's very common, in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Where people are they're subsistence farming. They're getting up at 4 a.m, farming dirt, hoping to feed their family.
Yeah.
And somebody offers them
$10.
$10,
is that'll feed them for a month.
Yeah.
The whole reasoning behind why people do things, and if you have just stayed in the same place for your whole life, and that's all you know.
Right.
I'll send you the Google invite for the Civil War because I know which side you're going to be on. But it's amazing to be able to sit there and talk to these people and not I felt no hatred towards them. I was as soon as I could process it, I was like, no, I get you. I know why you did what you did.
Right.
I don't agree with it.
Right.
Clearly, because you were trying to kill me, but like, I get it.
Right.
And being able to process the I get it from that anger is something that you're not going to get unless you are experienced enough in life and you've dealt with enough people that are in crappy ass situations to be able to deal with. And I don't know if it's being friends with all those drug dealers, but something was able to, where I was just able to be like, oh, okay, I see why you did that. So
Yeah. It's understanding that somebody else's subjective reality is every bit as much to them justified as ours is to us. Right.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
and saying I don't get it, I don't understand it,
Yeah.
I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But I get that you do.
Yeah. I mean, like, watch friggin' Red Dawn, the original, not the remake.
Right.
Never watched the remake, ever, ever, ever. That I do not understand, and I don't understand why they redid it. But in
It's a
terms
mystery.
of the original,
It's a mystery.
you know, like in the when, what would you do if someone came into your country and like you had nothing to do with this? You had no reason to be like, you're like, I don't know, I'm going to high school. Oh, look, the Russians are here. The Cubans are here. This is weird. Why are they? Yeah. And all of a sudden they're like, you know, arresting your family. Okay, give me a shovel. I'll dig a hole and I'll drop a bomb in it.
Right.
So it's that perception and that being able to understand. So I don't think that people should go directly out of college. I don't like, there's no real path, but it's whatever is going to get you to that point of being able to see other people in that situation prior to having to talk to people and understand people. That's going to give you that perspective.
So thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. And I think maybe we'll save the Baghdad story for the bonus segment. Because we're like kind of like, I know I'm taking up a lot of your time tonight. And I do want to talk about how you got injured in Iraq and what led up to, you know, this whole deal coming back and recovering from all of that on the back
But
side of it.
you want to see my
Let's see
Let's
it.
do it.
it's fucking this sweet piece of metal.
Let's see if we can.
You might have to bring it more central to. There you go.
There we go. There we go. This is what my PT, like, this is what I do at physical therapy. She's like, you know, we need to keep your flexibility up. Yeah.
So what is that? What's the whole deal with rocking the
rocking the
Yeah.
fake, rocking the fakeie, the
The
falsies
accessory?
over here. So, and what's super cool is that it actually comes straight out of the skin here.
Yeah, so that's actually your leg there. That's not like a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
And there's a metal shank coming out of it.
So is it like grafted into the bone?
It is.
connected?
Yeah, it actually, well, it's not, it goes straight through the middle.
Okay.
Which is super cool. They basically, bless them, I got the pictures from it. Where there's like, the surgeon is actually just like hammering metal into the bone. I was like, that is awesome. So about like 2 weeks before I got blowed up for real, I was in another area, because after Baghdad, I ended up going up to Balad to work with some tactical folks because, you know, I got in some trouble for, you know, going above my little specialist rank and causing some problems and getting mouthy and
Uppity women.
uppity lady folk, talking out their station. So I ended up that's how I ended up working with the infantry and the giant Samoan guys who would come back with chickens. I was out on another mission, actually, shortly after I had just gotten yelled at by my command for doing it again. But for being like, well, none of this makes sense. We should be doing something else. And we were on the road. We had gotten actually just in a car, in a MVA, in a motor vehicle accident in up armored, but not well, Humvee. And for those who have never ridden in as a passenger in the back of a Humvee, there are these things called M16 holders. Nobody knows why they're there, because nobody in their right mind would put an M16 in them. But at the bottom of the of the driver's side and the passenger side seats, which are metal, steel, at the bottom there are these little platforms that would hold the buttstock of an M16, and then there's a clip up at the top that would hold the barrel. And so if you ever wanted to point your M16 at the ceiling for no good reason, you could put it there. I've never seen anyone use it, but they are welded to the back of these things. And so when we hit a vehicle, we thought it was actually a VBID, one of the vehicle-borne IEDs, but luckily it wasn't. But we hit it, and because I am relatively small, I bounce forward, and my bootlace gets caught on the back of this metal. I end up tearing several tendons as my foot wraps around this thing. Nobody knows at the time. Take some Motrin, drink some water, take a knee if you have to.
Rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, you'll be fine. And so basically, and I chipped a piece of the bone. Nobody knows where that went. And so, whatever. But there was because we show up at this other tiny little fob after we got towed there, because our vehicle was completely, it was annihilated by this impact. I mean, people were killed during this. It was not a small accident. And we show up and they were like, well, we don't have imagery. We don't have an x-ray. We don't have anything. So I'm sure it's just a sprain because you were wearing your boots. How bad could it be? Several months later, after I'd gotten back to Fort Bragg and they actually did a bone scan, they were like, oh, you done messed yourself up there. That's gonna hurt for a minute. But so 2 weeks after that is when I was in the IED. The IED blew me backwards. Again, it was we're not in an MRAP. We don't have
the protection.
Anything it was the 1114, so it was actual real armor, but there was a gap in the armor, so I still get blown backwards. We were close enough that I get blown backwards by the concussive blast, and there's a metal plate right behind my head. Slam my head on the metal plate. So end up having a brain hemorrhage. Affects all of the nerves because everything's all connected. There's a song about it that you learn when you're 5, about all the bones at least. And then, so the nerves never heal properly, so the bone never heals properly, so nothing ever works right again. And 14 years later, after limping for, over a decade and so forth, and I would step off of a curb at, Madison Square Park, and all of a sudden my leg would just crumple, and I would have torn 2 more ligaments in my leg. And so I was just constantly going back.
Hurting yourself over and
Were they?
Yeah.
I mean, were they looking at this? Were they doing the imagery on it?
They were like, oh, you done tore it again. And
So they just thought it was weak and a recurring injury that.
the only thing that they could propose, the year prior, so last year I had the amputation done, but the year before I had my left foot, because of limping for, 12, 13 years, my whole left foot had collapsed.
Right.
Like all the structure was just done. So they ended up basically rebuilding that. So I've got metal and all that stuff. If the robot revolution happens soon, like I am on Team Robot. Like
transhumanism is
Yeah.
happening.
yeah, this is like straight up cyborg. But and then in my recovery from that, I go on vacation and I go on a boat, and as I am stepping over onto like one of the little drain holes or whatever. I'm gonna call it a drain hole because I was in the Army, not in the Navy. And the boat hits a swell, and my foot just buckles like it does, and I was like, oh, that's fine. I hardly feel those anymore. And then it started swelling up like to the size of I don't know, maybe a cassava melon. And I was like, oh no, I done messed it up this time. 24, it would happen to be the last day of vacation. The next day I roll in, when we flew home, I roll into the VA emergency room because my boyfriend at the time, it's okay, he's a Marine, he can handle it.
Just give him some crayons.
Not if I want him back. But he was like, oh no, that's like, did you break something? And I was like, nah, it's not broken, it's fine. Because that's the attitude that you get after a while. I went in and I was like, I don't know, I'm told that I should come in. And they were like, how are you walking? Like, there's like nothing connecting your foot anymore. The VA just wanted to do the same thing that they had done on the left, which is basically rebuild it out of metal and then shorten all of the tendons. So maybe I didn't mess it up, but they were like, but the nerves are still screwed up. You'll just do it again. You'll end up re-tearing all of those ligaments over time. And I went for a second opinion, and they said the same thing. And I went for a third opinion because I was like, this just doesn't seem right. Like, there's got to be something I can do.
Right.
And he was like, well, there is, but you're not going to like it because it's basically cut it off. And he was like, so, bless him. He was like, well, it's kind of like, getting divorced, like, or something. Like, if the marriage isn't, good anymore and bringing you happiness. And I was like, oh no, I've been through this. We can go on.
Shut up.
Please.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not married to this foot anymore. Like, we can do something about this. And he happens to be one of the few people in the country who is doing this type of, because actually if it had been a socket, like a traditional, I probably wouldn't have done it at all because I have enough friends who are amputees who have struggled with the socket or have had repeat surgeries after that.
Right.
But this, I get biofeedback, like I can feel, like when my foot's on the ground, I can feel it, because the metal is in the bone.
You
Right.
feel the pressure.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
I can actually flex that friggin' calf muscle, which is super weird because I think I'm pointing my foot. It's not moving. But
yeah.
yeah.
So So a lot of this happened because of the brain injury, and it wasn't healing. It wasn't sending the right signals, and so what the damage was degrading instead of healing. When did they figure out the whole brain issue and the surgery for that? And the surgery for that?
2005. Nobody was looking at traumatic brain injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't understand. They still don't really understand them.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know what? Like, more power to them. They, as they're catching up, they are doing the best they can. I do not fault the Army. I don't fault the VA. But by the time, so in 2000, either late 2007 or early 2008, I think, I went in. I was actually my first sergeant at the. By this point, I'm stationed in Germany, and my first sergeant at the time was like, "Hey, you're on the commander's red list, like the non-deployable, go get your shit done list for your post-deployment health reassessment." He was like, "When's the last time you got one of those done?" And I was like, never. And he was like, "Well, that means that you are 2 years overdue." And so the commander said that you need to do that yesterday. And it turned out that my the PA, who was my primary care person at the time, had just within the last week gotten an email from someone at Launch Stool who was studying concussive blast injuries and traumatic brain injuries, and had sent basically a list of symptoms, like if they have this one or this one or this one or this one, send them for an evaluation. And he was like, "So you don't have or you have all of them." And just I had been losing my vision. I had migraines that I had never had before, balance issues, all these things. I just thought I was going bananas. And so did the Army, because they would continually send me to psych when I was like, "I don't know, I'm seeing shadows." "Oh no, that's just you losing your peripheral vision." And
no problem.
Yeah. I'm sure you're
happens to everybody.
Yeah, you're just crazy.
Here's some Motrin.
Yeah. Here's some Motrin. I don't know, take a nap when you can. So I go see a neurologist. She finally diagnoses it. So I had gotten hit by the ID October of 2005. I had neurosurgery. They sent me to Walter Reed, for old Walter Reed, where they still had the asbestos. It was lovely. It smelled great. In June of 2008, I finally had brain surgery, because they realized that I had, during the IED, I had actually had a brain apoplexy, which is like a hemorrhage. I had a brain hemorrhage at the time, and I'd just been sitting there coagulating and forming this mass around my carotid artery.
So the blood was still present?
Oh yeah, this giant mass in the center of my brain. They still have it in the cavernous sinus on the left, because the surgeon was like, "There's a lot of stuff going through that area, including your carotid artery, that I don't feel comfortable." And I was like, "If you're not comfortable,
right,
I'm good. You leave whatever you need to leave." And they didn't even do the panel removal, which was somewhat disappointing. Because I was like, of all the things that could make me a cyborg,
right? A metal head.
No, they went through the face. They went right through my nose. As my friend Vanessa, same person, who held my hair back and then disappeared, As she said at the time, like the Egyptians, they just like basically take a hook,
twirl around your brain.
Yeah.
That's high tech though.
Yeah.
That's pretty high tech shit.
It's amazing.
take a little hook and pop that thing
Did
out.
that happen at the VA here in New York?
No, that was at Old School Walter Reed.
That's right. Old school Walter Reed.
Yeah.
The
The asbestos adds character.
advantage.
That's where the magic happens.
The advantage of both Walter Reed as a military hospital and Walter Reed has always been sort of cutting edge in a lot of ways because it's where all the combat traumas go initially, and they have great docs there. And then also the VA in New York, barring all the issues with the administration aspect of the VA, which sucks, the doctors in New York are amazing because all the hospitals, or most of the hospitals, they're part of the Bellevue system and NYU system. So all these doctors, all these surgeons rotate through the VA.
Yeah.
So you're getting world-class care there if you can get an appointment.
Yeah.
If you don't,
Which is the challenge.
if you don't die waiting for an appointment,
Once you get in to see a doctor, the
doctors
in New York, the
doctors are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Which is not the case with every VA, because in a lot of other smaller areas, the doctors aren't quite as up to date. But here they really are.
And I was I have never had an issue with VA care. Like the VA has actually been very good to me. I mean, again, like administrative issues, they have backlogs.
Yeah.
Like nobody's friggin' business.
It can take you 30 days to see a primary care. Primary
like
care physician.
if it's an emergency, you just don't call for an appointment. Just
walk,
go.
Yeah.
So they did the surgery in 2008, and then again, like I just kind of hung around.
Did you notice, did the surgery make like an immediate difference, or what did it help?
It definitely stopped the progression. Like I still have issues with peripheral vision. I still have issues with double vision. I have been through vision therapy, cognitive therapy, speech therapy, and then obviously physical therapy, but all of the therapies, and then, mental health. But that actually came surprisingly much later. But so I went through all of that stuff, but it definitely stopped the progression. I still get migraines because I still have all the stuff in the cavernous sinus. And so when the pressure drops, there's nowhere for any of the pressure to go. So I'll get a migraine and I'm like, I am the worst superhero in the world, because I'm like, it's definitely gonna rain in the next 24 to 48 hours. And I am more accurate than most of the weathermen. So
Superman had kryptonite. I mean, everybody. That doesn't make you a bad superhero.
I understand. It's just kind of a lame superpower. I'm like, the pressure is going. The pressure is dropping. It will rain.
That's your superpower that you know.
I know when it will rain in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Jordan, he's saying he got shot through the ankle 16 years ago tomorrow, and I'm looking at a fusion or an amputation. And he wants to know if you have any advice for someone looking at a possible amputation.
I never say that amputation is for everyone, just like I will never say that either college nor the military is for everyone. However, having had actually both of them, one on the left, one on the right, I have less pain in my amputation side than I do on my on the fusion side. My sister, who is actually a neurophysical therapist, would be very upset to hear that. That being said, also because I have osseointegration, which is the whole metal into the bone thing, it's a very different experience for me as it is for people who have the socket. So people who have the socket have all kinds of other issues. They like blistering issues and skin issues and infection and whatever else. And again, like if he had not been able to offer this particular type of surgery with the bone fusion, osseointegration, then I would not have done it.
There are a lot of cases. I mean, even going back as far as like Carl Brashear is the first Black Navy diver who had damage to his leg. Like, there are times when having the amputation gets you back into the game, whereas if you had fusion or something like that, you'd still have your limb, but it would not function to any high degree.
Yeah. One of the main reasons, like if there's nerve damage, if there's stuff like that, stuff that's not going to be fixed, I did not want repeat surgeries.
Right.
I am a one and done type of, I mean, my ex-husband, he was like, once your mind's made up. And I was like, yeah, no, so those papers. But
is osseofusion pretty common now, or is that just cutting edge?
it's still new. It's still new here. The Brits. It's actually the Australians, the Swedes, the Brits. Actually, I heard about it from a British. Bless him. He had been part of their EOD, their ordnance disposal units, their bomb guys, and it's funny because there were 4 or 5 of them in the group, and all of them were missing at least one limb, and they had all been. And I was like, "So you weren't very good at it?" And they were like, "Well, the bomb did get defused." But I love them. But one of them had both legs above the knee osseointegration above the knee. And so actually he would like sit down in a chair and then he would push like a little button and it would just like
interesting
click down, which was fun. But he was like he had had the sockets for a long time, and he was like this was life-changing, and he was like, I'm so happy that I did this particular type. And so when I knew that either I was going to get like repeat surgeries, which still would never get rid of all of the pain, or amputate. And because I had met this guy, I contacted a friend and I was like, is anybody doing below the knee osseointegration? Because he happened to work in prosthetics somewhere else. He did his homework and he was like, there's actually somebody in New York City who does it. So he had actually given me the contact information for that particular surgeon at the hospital for special surgery. So, and because I have TRICARE, so I can, because I'm medically retired, so and he knows how to work the system.
So you went outside the VA system for that then? Okay.
Yeah, but the VA is doing all of my care after post-surgery. Right. So because dealing with health insurance is a nightmare.
Right.
So, I mean, like, I saw the bills for what this would have cost, and it's a lot of money. So, but the VA is just not, but the VA is authorized to do, they're studying osseointegration above the knee because the femur is such a large bone that it's FDA approved. Below the knee, it's much harder to do. So the VA is not really doing below the knee osseointegration yet.
It's very interesting because I like busted up my arm and they basically had to put it together, but because because of how it's all put back together, at some point they'll do a prosthetic and a shoulder replacement. Where they'll give me a new shoulder joint and then a new upper, like half the upper arm. So it sounds like they're doing the integration.
Yeah.
With this, because they'll attach like, the metal or plastic or whatever it is inside the arm actually to what's left of the humerus.
That's super cool.
Yeah. And then it's just a reverse instead of like the ball and joint. This actually becomes the ball and this becomes the joint. But it's supposed to eliminate all the arthritis and everything like that.
That's super cool.
So, but it's interesting because it sounds similar to what you had in a way that they're going to insert that
do
into
it.
the bone.
They do it, and also VA has I know looked at upper arm.
Yeah.
But they can't really do it yet. I think
because it's too,
lower.
Oh, well, these
It's
are
too
really small bones. Yeah. Okay, I understand. So it's really the size of the bone that.
Because it goes right through the center.
Right.
And they just hammer it on up in there. And then I just like screw on my little attachments down at the bottom. I have like a little Allen wrench that I usually carry with me.
What kind of attachments do you have? Now, see, this is the superhero stuff.
No,
this is like a bat belt, a utility belt.
P.S. I do have a 3D printer, so I am 1,000% open to experimenting with this. But the
you guys heard it here first.
It's an old and crappy 3D printer that I have had to remanufacture like 40 times.
You can't retract that statement.
Oh no! What I really want to do, and tragically I didn't have it in time for this snowstorm. I'm gonna like make a casing for my foot that's like in the shape of like a dinosaur claw, and then I'm gonna go up to Central Park
and walk
around with like one dinosaur foot and one human foot, and just with the Taurus, just 1,000%.
If you did a snow shovel, you could make some money walking up and down the streets, like where people are trying to dig their cars out. You like, I mean, and right? If you're a good workout,
right? Like, there's potential here. Yeah, I was. I'll give you a cut. It's fine.
Nice.
Yeah. So. Back to the original question, I would recommend looking into the options further because, again, like talking to friends who have regular socket, especially below the knee, like, I mean, my calf muscle has atrophied so much, and I've had the nerves reattached so that I can actually flex that muscle, but like, so many of my friends have had so many issues here and there, and then whereas I don't have to worry about it because it's
right.
It's like a friend of mine was we were sitting at a bar back when you could do that, and he was like poking at this, and he was like, "Oh, what is this? Like, what is this metal?" And another friend of mine is like, "That's her bone. Like, you're touching her, but like, don't do that. That's super weird." And I was like,
stainless steel. It's all
yeah, and titanium.
Oh, titanium.
Yeah, because it's non-magnetic. The only thing that's magnetic, as I found out when I went in for another MRI, is this, and so I actually have to detach.
Right, hold that up there in front of the camera so people can see all that.
Hold on.
Now I can
actually take the old boot off because I can't wear I can't get socks over it, so so my Trek Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself socks, it's only on the other side. A pair of socks lasts you twice as long.
That's nice. Does Doc Martin know that you are?
Actually, Vans has sent me stuff. Not Doc Martin, but
all right. So hold this bad boy.
P.S. I paint my toes. Oh God!
People should be able to see that now. So now I have questions.
My physical therapist would be so fucking proud.
I have questions. Specifically,
she's worked on this.
Specifically, I have questions about the leg warmer. Now.
Okay. I had to explain this to somebody earlier. So yes, because of course I have leg warmers.
She's a
because
maniac,
it's 19. Yeah, because I was like it's 1988.
Right.
Turn to
flash dance.
Your 12 o'clock here. And there you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. So the leg warmer is because it is below freezing outside, but But so I have actually cut most of my pants to be capris because the man-pries at that point.
Beachcombers.
As I believe my friend who lived in New Zealand for a while, short pants. Because actually when I went to physical therapy this morning and I was wearing like full length pants, and when it hits like the bottom, like right where that piece is, right where it intersects, it just feels really weird. And just like if you're walking just over and over, it just like feels really weird. So I've cut most of my pants, and then but the leg warmers are because, I mean, otherwise my little stumpy gets cold, and the other side would get very cold because that's just a regular. Otherwise you see.
Otherwise normal.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
so-
Otherwise you see my full Spock.
Your Spock, yeah.
Nice.
In his.
That's baller.
Yeah, right.
So you
see,
cut.
Look, he's flashing gang signs right there. It's got fucking gang signs.
Live long and prosper, yo.
Right?
Nice.
Gotta do it.
So, just out of curiosity, is it just the symmetry? And why do you cut the leg off the other pants? Also?
Because otherwise, yeah, it's symmetry.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it so
I'm still an
Easier
engineer.
to fold.
Yeah. And I am still an engineer at heart, and I'm like, oh no, it's just kicking in, like,
This
oh,
is,
it's just weird.
This is so interesting, as a science fiction, cyberpunk geek myself, is that you are the living embodiment of the fusion between human being and machine in a sense.
I am Borg assimilator.
Yeah, I mean, other amputations.
you will be assimilated.
in the past have been you're affixing something that's sculpted onto your nub there.
Right.
This is something that's actually a part of your body. I mean, it's there for good.
I sleep with this bad boy on. Like, as for my attachments, I have a rock climbing foot. I was rock climbing 5 months.
Was that
after my
already
surgery.
on the market, or did you create that?
No, they actually, so the company that makes my climbing shoes actually also happens to have a prosthetic foot that normally they would put on a regular prosthetic leg, but the VA was able to adapt the foot itself to like this build.
That's amazing. What about heels?
So there, I have a foot that has like a little like button on the side, and you can turn, like you can point it down, and it will keep that shape, and so that will stay on the heel. Similarly, a swimming foot, I use it for scuba diving, which has like a little button, flips all the way down. It only has 2 positions that it'll lock in. And so it points down, you put the fin on it, and then you can kick. So...
Oh, I would have just made the fin.
I know, but walking would be very difficult.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, Elana, talk to me then about, where you're at today in, you're in the city, what are you up to? And I want to hear about Pathfinder, this group that you founded.
So, I will talk to you as I put my shoe back on. Because I have been known to walk back outside without, yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, why does everything sound weird? Oh. I'm just walking outside with only one shoe on. So when I got out of the service, because I had been med boarded and I didn't want to be, kind of as evidenced by the fact that it happened because I tried to deploy, I was not pleased with my situation, and so I didn't plan very well for it. And when I came back to the area, I basically ripped off the Band-Aid. I filed for divorce, sold our house, that we had bought when he got out of the service, which had been several years before. And then I was like, no, I'm going like into the city proper, because he was not a city person, so he was not city folk. And I was like, I'm going to go into New York City. And so basically lost my job, lost my house, lost my husband, and was like, screw all y'all. I'm going to go make a life for myself in the big city.
It's a country song.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's an amazing country song.
Yeah. We got somebody who looks sleepy. But
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Do you name your leg?
I did. My leg's name is Peggy.
It sounds like a penguin.
Yeah, it does. It probably would make a good penguin name, but Peggy, because it is essentially a peg, and I am big on puns. But yes.
Okay.
So, but we decided that we needed a name for it, because when I was rock climbing, when you go rock climbing, the person who is on belay, standing on the ground, will sometimes tell you, like, oh, put your hands here or put your feet here. And she was yelling, like, put the little foot, because the rock climbing foot is like half the size of a regular foot. And she was like, put the little one up there. And so we decided we needed a name for it. And so we came up with Peggy. But so Peggy goes to that foot. And yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
See, if you were in studio, you could ask questions directly too and wouldn't have to type them in. So
Right? You wouldn't have to type them in.
nepotism in action.
Yep. Yep.
So you
So I got out, and I didn't know what I wanted to quite do with myself. I went through basically the same military transition that everybody goes through, where we're just like, oh, cool, I just did this whole thing, and I had been doing it for, at that point, a decade, and I was all of a sudden out. I had an engineering degree, but nobody was using the same types of technology that I had learned 10 years before. And that was a rude awakening.
and similar to an infantry soldier, I imagine that CI qualifications really accounted for almost nothing.
they don't transfer well. Like, I was like, I can negotiate, but apparently, by the way, the business folk don't like it when you're like, oh, a negotiation's just like an interrogation.
Right.
And they're like, no. And I was like, no. It's not like on TV. Oh, well. I just lost that job.
Yeah.
So, and I hopped, that's a pun, from job to job, or like even opportunity to opportunity. Like, I had no idea what was going on. And I went from organization to organization, like, where is the right fit for me, and how am I going to figure this stuff out? And I started kind of working my way up through the ranks of some of the nonprofits, and just volunteering and trying to get myself out there. And the more I started coming into contact with other people, the more I realized, like, oh, some people don't try again. In fact, a lot of people don't try again, like, especially with something that's important to them, especially mental health.
Yeah.
Like, you go in and you have a bad experience, you're never going again.
Yeah.
You're like, nope, that's it. I guess mental health in general, not good for me.
Yeah.
I'm not the right fit or whatever. And that made me realize, like, first of all, we have this series of tubes called the internet these days, in some places apparently better than others.
How far they can run the tubes. I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They don't come as far out in Brooklyn.
Right.
It's the size of the tubes
right.
that's important.
Apparently, we have very small tubes here
Yeah.
at the team house. Tiny tubes.
It's not the size of the tubes, it's how you use them. It's the amount of information that can go through them at one time. Anyway.
We know how to use our tubes at the team house, no matter what their size.
So, it occurred to me that if we have this wonderful network that I hear Al Gore invented, then you can ultimately put all of this information on there. Like, all of the, why is it so friggin' hard to figure out, like, what is available? Why is it so hard to figure out, like, what's open to me, or what's open to everybody, or what's open to my spouse, or what's open to whatever? And
it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting use for the internet, aside from just cat videos.
Yeah,
and
because
prawn.
when
I do like the cat videos, though.
when I was looking at it, and when I think back to like my own experience getting out of the military, also, like, there are so many like charities and there's Veterans Affairs and there are all these services out there, and a lot of them are very good and very like people who are very well-meaning trying to help. There's actually so many of them that you don't know where to fucking start.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like there are over, well, sadly at this point after the old COVID's probably fewer, but there's over 40,000 nonprofits that have some attachment to military and veteran services.
That's amazing.
And then there are all of your state, federal, and even like local municipal services. And then there's the companies that have like a support network or whatever. And like there's so much out there. And we have like thousands listed, but like across the country, but like there's so many. So so we decided to start not only localizing them and then figuring out like, okay, so if you were out of the military and you did this particular job and you were, you served in this service era. So if you're a Vietnam vet, or if you're a post 9/11 veteran, or if you never served in combat, you qualify for totally different things. If you have honorable discharge or other than honorable or somewhere in between, something completely different. And so we started filtering that, and then we started looking at artificial intelligence because I'm a super nerd, and again, robot revolution on the side of the robots. So the whole artificial intelligence thing
I have it
factors
right
in.
back here, actually, now that we mentioned
There it is. There it is.
My Deus Ex
Yes. There it is.
statue.
See?
You guys can feast your eyes on that of Adam Jensen and all of his augmentations.
I would just like to point out that as soon as COVID hit and they decided that New York was going into lockdown, I didn't go that far, but I did go into, I changed my avatar on like half of my little profiles, like my Slack profiles, my work profiles, to Snake Plissken of Escape from New York. We have another question from the audience.
But my friend wants to know, how do you take a shower with your fake leg?
Okay, good question. Because it is actually something that has not yet been perfected in the prosthetics industry. I installed a shower seat at the when I was getting the surgery, and so I was able to. So now I just put my foot up on it because I'm lazy. Most people that I know, and what has been recommended to me by the prosthetics people, is to actually take the foot off, because there is there's like a cloth like sock type of thing that's in there that gets super gross. And
Is it for friction or?
I don't know.
It's magic.
Yeah,
Magic.
yeah. Medical science is not a real science. So
It's like a tag on a
like
mattress.
guesswork.
Nobody knows.
So to answer that question, I just try to keep it out of the water mostly. But most people will take it off and then have something to balance on.
Well, that's kind of dangerous if you take it off because then you can slip.
Oh yeah, no, it's super dangerous. There was a period of time where I had a little stool that I, like one of those, like a little step stool. And then I put silicone on top of it to make it non-slip because I was trying to think ahead. And then I put the metal piece on top of that. The problem is that it was a folding stool, and the metal peg, hence Peggy, slipped through the hole that was the handle at the time, and so and then got stuck. Because when you put your weight on it, it slides through plastic. And
So you had a stool as a foot.
so I basically had a stool as a foot. It bled a lot. But also, I didn't know how to get it back off. So I almost resigned myself to living out the rest of my life with a stool attached to the bottom of my leg.
They should have been like this thing, like a fake leg, but like on the bottom, it's like those mats, like for like the bath.
I have said this.
Yeah.
I have said this exact same thing.
Wait, say what?
Where you just, I was going to actually 3D print something, but the materials that you can 3D print with are not quite appropriate for it. And they're apparently not, like, they're not weight bearing. Whatever. Hasn't stopped me yet.
You were gonna print a map?
Why don't you just glue it to the bottom of your shoe?
I know.
I just can't believe that, yeah. Matt says, Jack's daughter and her friend are going to start their own podcast, webcast. Great questions. Yeah, I've been getting trolled by my daughter and her friend in the comments section for like the last hour.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're all over.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem, is that you're not asking their questions, so she has to ask them
Yeah.
a lot from the live studio audience.
I feel like this is one of those things where like your parents say like, I hope you have a kid that grows up to and now here
The curse of every parent.
yeah, I'm like the internet guy and
Yeah.
my daughter like just trolling the shit out of me in the comments section.
Boy, you need to answer the question or else you're not getting that much views.
She's got a
answer
point.
the questions.
No, you need to answer more, Daddy.
Talking about
It's
printing, Ian Hutchinson, thank you very much, said, can you all pass my contact info on to Elana? I have access to CNC machinery. If she has models, I can get it made in whatever.
I told
And he said this before we even brought this topic up.
Excellent.
So we will get you-
Because all I have is really
I told Ian,
an
I told him
8-year-old
to
printer.
email me and I can facilitate.
Okay, sounds
on
good.
my end.
Cool, because I have an 8-year-old crappy ass printer and old filament, and so far I have printed out a, go figure, Starship Enterprise that I have converted into a menorah for the holidays. Just want to put that out there. Like, this is what I do on Friday nights because who
wild
needs
shit.
That,
right?
That's
fucking
got to
wild.
have a market. I mean, maybe not a big market, but a market.
COVID. I don't need to date bitches. I have a 3D printer. I'm good.
And the Starship Enterprise.
Right?
So
I'm good on Fridays.
Yeah, we
bring this back home.
get this back home. We want to bring this back to you.
Pathfinder.
So you started.
Pathfinder.
Yeah. So you started an organizational website that.
So I started a company that not only lists the stuff on. Wow, how did we get over there? I did start a company that not only aggregates all of that stuff on the internet, but also, we use artificial intelligence to essentially, as people write comprehensive, that's a direct target towards some people who are just right. This organization is good as fuck. Like, that helps nobody. But like, who actually tell somebody something useful about their experience and like what they can expect walking into the room and so forth, we can break it down using various artificial intelligence techniques that keep your identity completely private, but is able to look at certain personality dynamics that say someone who is just like you in terms of like their general level of assertiveness and their general level of melancholy or cheerfulness or whatever, they're doing really well at this mental health organization versus this mental health organization. You're going to want to look at these guys because they know how to handle people like you, or they deal really well with people like you. And because the more people I was talking to, they would walk in, and if they had a really terrible experience, they would be like, you know, like, that's it, I'm out, and I'm not going back. And those are the folks that, because they're not getting the treatment that they need, would just...
So is the majority of your business, is it dealing with mental health, or is it dealing with the transitioning period, moving into careers? Everything. Like all aspects? We're trying to get some participation from some of these companies that have mentor groups within the company. So some of them, like some of the bigger, because we're in New York, you know, some of the bigger financial institutions have like a specific thing, like once you come on board, we also have an internal veterans organization, or even like, you know, like NBC has one, like a lot of the production Salesforce
companies.
has an amazing one.
Yeah.
And free training for vets. So
yeah. So like they have like all this stuff, and then the folks that have internal programs, we're able to say like, hey, vets who go there, they're not going there and then leaving after 6 months.
Right.
Because they have this great support organization.
Right.
They have like really good support, and they have really good help. So it's really useful to them to know. And so it's really useful to people who are looking at it. I mean, it's basically the same thing as like a Yelp or even like Google reviews or the Facebook reviews. You look at it and you're like, oh, now I get why. Like people who are like me, people who were in the Navy or who were in the Army or whatever, they see it and they're like, I trust you. I get it.
Right.
And where can people go and find this, go and find Pathfinder and like dip their foot into it?
So, so to speak. There it is.
You notice he said foot, not feet. So
There it is. Anytime there's an excuse for a pun, I will take it. Pathfinder.vet. That's VET, not net. I don't even know where that goes. Or pathfinderlabs.com. And we have yet another audience question. I'm just giving you the warning.
Oh, hold on. Finish your pitch.
Yeah.
Finish your pitch, please.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're never gonna.
But so pathfinder.vet or pathfinderlabs.com gets you straight to us, and so you can search and you can let us know what you want to see on the website, or if there's something that we're missing. There's a lot that we're still missing, and we are constantly updating the site, and anything that goes into the contact on our page pretty much goes straight to me, because I'm really the only one that gets those emails anyway.
If I go on this website and I'm like, yo, Elana, I'm all fucked up. I need some help here. What's going to happen? What do I do?
If you go to our contact page and you send us an email, I will, chances are, respond to you and spend a lot of my time that I'm probably supposed to be doing some sort of stupid quarterly report that I don't want to do anyway, responding to your message and trying to help you out in whatever area you are. and helping you figure out what's what. And if you are able to navigate through and find something that is useful in your area, we definitely have every VA we have all the VAs, because a VA is not the same as their other centers. So if you, and I believe that they're called the same things elsewhere, but if you go to a vet center somewhere, they're mostly mental health, and they don't talk to VA Main, so you can actually go to a vet center and keep it out of your main medical record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the vet centers are they're part of the VA system, but their records are kept independent of VA Main. So anything that you say at a vet center does not automatically end up in your VA record. And vet centers are everywhere. All of the clinics, all of the hospitals, all of the VBAs. We even listed all of the cemeteries just for fun, because I really want to see if somebody's going to give a review of like, well, I got this plot. But so far nobody has done it, which I think is a lack of creativity. But and then we have a lot of the organizations, a lot of the big names, some of like the mom and pop, like we do 12 service dogs a year. It's just as we hear about stuff, we get it listed. So
And how are you guys funded?
we are actually a C Corp moving over to a B Corp, which is just because we're a social enterprise, but we are not a nonprofit.
You're not a nonprofit.
We are a for-profit company, and so we do analytics where we anonymize, everything is anonymous anyway, and then we basically take all of the information, and we're able to actually tell the organizations or the VA or whatever, whoever our clients are, we're able to say, hey, overall, you have like 40 people who are willing to contribute feedback. We want to say, you've got feedback for these 40 people. Overall, your program would do better if you implemented some sort of reward type of system, like give somebody a Velcro patch, because for some reason, all the veterans seem to like Velcro patches.
And
It's weird with veterans and Velcro.
550 cord bracelets.
Yes, paracord bracelets are baller.
Yeah.
Beard oil.
High fashion.
Yeah.
Beard oil.
Yes.
Ball caps too.
Yeah.
All right. And look, she's wearing my bro cap right now. All right. This is the last question. All right, little girl.
We have 2 questions.
Oh. All right, it's a 2-parter. Go.
Okay. First one we have from Gordon Bradbury.
Our boy Gordon. See, she's doing your job now.
She's better at it than I am.
Okay. OJ Star Trek or JJ Abraham Star Trek?
Oh, no. JJ, I have comments about JJ.
I don't know who this
Grievances to air?
Yeah.
You're fine. No, I have issues with JJ. We can almost leave it at that. Like, I understand what he's trying to do for the franchise. Great. Leave it at that. It's a totally different thing and not worth my
How
time.
about the Orwell?
I love it.
Yeah. It's
I'm super excited because they just started filming the next season.
and then red shirts.
I actually, I was just saying this to somebody that I actually do have a T-shirt that is a stormtrooper versus a red shirt, where the stormtrooper misses and the red shirt is dead anyway. Yeah.
Second question.
Okay. Next one is from my best friend Allison. Okay.
Hello, Allison.
So first, are you good at balancing on your leg when you walk?
Not terribly, no. It's amazing how much you rely on your ankle. which I don't have. So, not very, but that is why I'm still in physical therapy, and probably will be for quite some time. But that's actually fine with me because they forced me to stay in shape even during COVID.
Okay, everybody, that is it for question night. See you next Friday.
Thank you. This is the beauty of doing things live, is that nothing is edited, and all the hiccups, and the beauty of live streaming.
Well, you know what? Just reading through Gordon's questions too.
Yeah. So, everybody, thank you
Screw
for
you, Jake.
joining us live tonight. We had like 165 or so people watching this thing live, and many more will over the week. Elana, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, please like, share, and subscribe to the video, or subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to this. We're on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, pretty much wherever you go for podcasts. We're out there, and on YouTube. Please make sure you subscribe, like the video, give us a thumbs up or the thumbs down, and leave some comments down there. Tell us if we suck or not. And and there's also a link down in the Patreon, the link down in the description to our Patreon page if you want to support the stream and get access to the bonus segments.
And if you join tonight, it's only $1 a month. You get to hear Elana's story about why did she get kicked out of Baghdad? Inquiring minds want to know.
These enduring mysteries. Hold that thought. And Elana, if people want to find Pathfinder, where do they go again?
Pathfinder.vet, V-E-T, or pathfinderlabs.com.
Okay. So if you're a veteran, definitely check out this resource. And even if you're not, please blast this out. Like, let people know it's here, because I think one of the biggest challenges with veterans
is finding those resources.
Is finding the resources. And if you point them towards pathfinder.vet, Victor Echo Tango, or pathfinderlabs.com, they'll have all the resources listed, so they won't have to go out and find them all.
And if they are not, let me know, and I will get it listed.
And just a little PSA, so next episode is actually, I believe, Christmas Eve. So we're not doing the show live, but we're going to have a pre-recorded episode. We're going to premiere that night. So we're so dedicated to this show. We will have something for you. It's going to be a good one. We have Greg Corker coming on, who is a Little Bird pilot in 1/60th, and I believe it's Monday. We're recording the show, and then we'll schedule it to premiere on Christmas.
Oh, it is Monday.
What
time? What time are we?
21st.
What time are we going to do it at?
Anyway,
we'll figure it out.
Normal time.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Do you want me to do the questions?
Well, what? We're all done with questions. We're all done with questions.
It was for like on Christmas Eve.
Oh, for the show with Greg?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, we're not going to have questions.
That's not
We're not
Oh,
gonna have questions.
no one's live.
Yeah.
It'll be recorded. No questions, Alice, for that one. Maybe
You know,
not.
I'm just gonna go on the chat and then I'm gonna answer everybody's questions.
Yes! Yes!
These kids today, like, they're grown in a vat for this whole world.
I am on board with answering people's questions with random answers.
Roasted.
And it just freaks me out. When she was like 5, I took her on a little road trip, and we're staying in a hotel, and we're watching YouTube videos in bed before she goes to sleep, and she turns to me. This is like a 5-year-old kid, and she's like, "Daddy, I want to have fans and subscribers." And I'm like, "What the fuck? What the hell do you?" But I only have myself to blame for all of this. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining us tonight, and thanks to everyone who's listening to this, in the subsequent weeks and months. And thank you, Elana, for coming in studio and the trek out here.
It was a great time.
Bye.
And we will do it again. So see you guys next time. And okay, that is it. And